the legendary Hollywood director. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 976, a marketing story of mutual achievement. The new project that Lyman mentioned is, of course, Avengers. As early as October last year, when Kevin Feige was supervising the production of Iron Man, he was also taking the time to implement the plot setting of heroes gathering to confront each other, based on the Battle of New York. For a project with so many series starring actors, multiple locations, and multiple venues, the estimated shooting budget is naturally not low. In order to reduce risks, it is also the most common way to recover costs and warm up for movies. Advertising placement is definitely the highlight before the formation of the team. You know, in order to promote their A8 series sports cars, Audi spent $30 million in Iron Man 2 to designate Downey, the protagonist, as the model for his travel. If it is the lineup of Avengers, the popularity is easier to hype, which is actually a considerable income that can be used to stabilize the early development costs. It can even be said that during the promotion process, the brand side will follow up with investment and cooperation to increase exposure. Moreover, the scheduled start time is to shoot immediately after the Golden State Comic Con, which means it will start in mid-July. In terms of the schedule, some of the actors have already signed contracts and prepared in advance. The filming is also progressing in an orderly manner. Even Downey, who is currently on a roadshow, will not be delayed. The next afternoon, around 3 o'clock, the driver drove the car, and Lyman and Kevin Feige went to the country club together. The club is a place that is more suitable for so many people to socialize with each other, mainly because the people they invited are also members of the club. Gentlemen, we are here. The driver parked neatly in the parking space, and Lyman also adjusted his tie. After getting out of the car, Lyman looked around and saw that there were various luxury cars parked in the exclusive parking lot of the club, no less than 30 or 50. After walking in, there were also dozens of people talking and laughing with each other in front of the wide golf course, with plump figures. Because it is Avengers, Marvel invited executives in charge of brand marketing from powerful large companies. In a sense, these people are used to advertising space of various prices, and there is a huge demand for push every year, such as Coca-Cola, Pepsi, KFC, Procter & Gamble, McDonald's and other giants in the high premium fields of fast moving consumer goods, daily necessities, cosmetics, etc. These brands are also the most deeply involved with Hollywood. After all, the two are very compatible. If there is really a demand, they have never been stingy. Anyone has to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in buying advertising time on TV stations every year, and movie placement is already a very cheap and sometimes very cost-effective solution. Moreover, the Marvel brand has good value in terms of its ability to bring goods, audience stickiness, box office performance, and audience age group, and the subject matter itself is quite positive. After seeing the effect, everyone will be more convinced, and they will be convinced to the point that they are the sponsors, not the ones being asked. But this is very realistic. It is precisely because they recognize Marvel's so-called big budget projects and its cost-effective window placement capabilities that they send executives to the club to see the situation, evaluate the placement prospects and funding ratio. Everyone was enthusiastic, and even if there was competition, it was hard to see anything. After all, when it comes to implantation, brands in the same field always implement exclusive clauses after getting contracts. Everyone considers whether it is suitable and how much money to invest. They don't care about Marvel's practice of calling competitors together. They fight for primetime advertising space from various TV stations every year, so this is nothing. Lyman also knows that, although his status is not low, everyone is not in the same circle. There is no conflict of interest, only mutual goals. The reason for being polite is to wait and see if the window is valuable enough. Movies themselves have the attributes of media communication. As long as they can bring visible traffic and monetization capital to the brand, it is reasonable for them to spend money to compete. Therefore, when greeting Lyman, all the executives had hearty smiles on their faces. Looking at his and Kevin's expressions, they were not well-known producers and directors, but two gods of wealth who could bring in huge traffic. Among them, the most obvious one is Angelo, the president of Audi's marketing department, who has reaped the benefits. Previously, Audi's position in the American auto market was very embarrassing, and their first sponsorship of Iron Man 1 in 2008 was for the purpose of redefining the brand's tone. When my team and I received the script of Iron Man, we found that Stark was a self-made man who used technology and personal ingenuity to accomplish a series of great feats, Angelo said. This is how we created the Audi brand, so we believe that Audi's brand image is highly consistent with the character in the play. Original words from the interview. Although Tony Stark is only a fictional screen image, the impression the movie leaves on the audience is real. This reality is reflected in Audi, that is, the models it launched quickly carved out a niche in the sports car market, which also happens to reflect the purchasing population of the Audi R8, which coincides with the brand image of creating a high-end positioning for young people. In other words, Audi's Marvel series ads are very intuitive and effective for brand building, and they cooperate closely with Blue Butterfly. Whenever the movie is released, they start to carry out corresponding publicity, so that potential customers can enjoy the car models driven by the movie characters through various channels every day, or directly display the car model stills in its 4S stores, and focus on using the element in the movie for publicity. After all, the so-called overwhelming bombing is inseparable from the support of these sponsors. Everyone works together, and it is difficult not to leave an impression on the audience. The reason why Audi cooperates so well is that in the past 2 years of cooperation with Marvel movies, consumers' public opinion index and brand awareness of Audi have increased year by year, and sales have continued to rise, which truly shows the cooperation between movie IP and car brands, and ultimately achieves mutual benefit. Such a successful case. If the effect is not good, how can Audi be willing to spend money? In the case of consistent tonality, each brand has its own positioning, and sense of technology is a word that Audi has always been on its lips, and breaking through technology and enlightening the future is its reshaping of positioning, and the brand concept it is committed to delivering. It just so happens that Iron Man is the most technologically vocabularies in Marvel's series. Therefore, before coming, Audi's senior management also continued to strengthen the bundled implantation plan, or in other words, they wanted Iron Man to be the incarnation of Audi, and once the familiar movie element appeared, the audience would think of Audi. Lyman. Angelo came up. Hi, man. Lemon shook hands with him happily. So many people were invited today, but only Audi was in the luxury car field. It was enough to know that Lemon did not want the audience to think of Iron Man after seeing Audi element, and Audi could also play a leading role in responding, because the cooperation between the two companies was too close and too frequent, and other brand giants could not compare with Audi's closeness. Chapter 977, 200 million. After entering the lounge, the department executives who had exchanged pleasantries for a while sat quietly in their seats, looking at Lemon and Kevin in front of them, waiting for their next speech. Seeing the slightly curious expressions of the brands, Lemon secretly sighed that the charm of Marvel was getting harder to ignore, smiled slightly, and gave Kevin a wink. Kevin received the signal and said straight to the point without any delay, "I believe you all know the purpose of inviting everyone to gather here today. Fortunately, the box office of Iron Man 2 is not bad, and our shooting plan is also relatively smooth. Therefore, in order to continue to deepen the audience's impression of the developed superhero characters, we at Marvel have decided to take out a budget of at least $200 million to shoot a movie that accommodates the existing system and continue to improve the audience's brand awareness and public opinion of Marvel. Among them, in order to achieve a win-win effect with the implanted brand, we hope to have a more rigorous and detailed plan." Kevin just paused, and the brand representatives below also murmured. The most talked about topic is nothing more than the word 200 million. What does a project with a budget of 200 million represent? Confidence, development value, huge traffic and topics, based on the attributes of the movie itself. In horizontal comparison, the success of Spider-Man 3 is still in sight. Will Downey participate? Or will he be the protagonist? Suddenly someone asked. Kevin immediately replied, "Not only Iron Man will appear, but Captain America, Thor, Hulk, and the newly joined Black Widow, and Hawkeye will also have roles. Our project is to break the inherent role limitations and expand the number of groups. In short, it is more popular and more global. There was another commotion below, but most of them were excited. The main Marvel projects have substantial achievements and fan bases, and it is a big investment of $200 million. No matter how you look at it, the value of this window will not be small. They are all implanted, and the effect of advertising must be better, and the choice will be more rewarding. A group of brand owners said so. After everyone digested the news, Kevin smiled and continued, then the advertising space is still divided into street placement and specific placement. You are all used to it. The so-called street placement is more common. A fast food restaurant happens to be a McDonald's store when a camera sweeps over. Specific placement is like the relationship between Audi and Iron Man. Downey drives an Audi series sports car whenever he travels. Of course, this division is because the needs are different. Street advertising has always been low priced and the bundling relationship is not high. It is suitable for the field of fast moving consumer goods. Specific placement has a high bundling relationship, which almost involves the role of brand endorsement. The price is more expensive, and the cooperation is not limited to the screen. We will send a report to your departments in a bit. I'm sure you are all familiar with the various grades, so I won't repeat them here. I can only remind you that the shots of street placements will not exceed 3 seconds, and specific placements will be divided according to specific scenes. The longer the appearance, the higher the price. In addition, we have already informed the actors' agencies in advance about the brands that can be placed and will take special care of them during the joint promotion. The placement process was very familiar to the people present. When they heard this, they didn't react much. They were just thinking about how to go back and plan the best promotional plan that could match the execution. At this time, Kevin finished the final quotation link. Ladies and gentlemen, there are only so many advertising spots for a movie, and brands in the same field enjoy exclusivity. Therefore, in order to ensure fair competition, before July, those who are interested in cooperation will determine their own investment plans and then inform us. We will eventually select relatively suitable placement brands from them. Well, if everyone understands it clearly, it will be decided, and the bidding will end before July. Of course, the representatives were not moved after hearing this auction competition routine. After all, no matter what, as long as each brand thinks that Marvel's new project is profitable, they will discuss and make reasonable bids. If they think it is not worth investing, they naturally don't have to spend any effort. For example, if McDonald's and KFC both want street advertising space in the fast food field in Avengers, one will bid $5 million after thinking about it, and the other will be more valuable and put the chips at $7 million. Both are connected to Marvel alone. Marvel receives the quotation plan, calculates that KFC's price is higher, and chooses KFC. Then it will also inform McDonald's and tell it that it has lost the election. This quotation process can be said to minimize the situation of mutual compromise because each advertising space is the best competitor, so the implantation profit of Avengers can be raised to the extreme. The film industry generally plays like this. The bidding is relatively fair, and it also gives the brand respect and the choice space for both parties. And when things are almost said, it won't be long before some people find reasons to leave. Although communication is also a kind of work, obviously some people don't want most of their work to be communication. Just like that, when Lyman said something to Kevin and was about to leave, Audi's marketing director Angelo followed him. The two naturally had something to talk about. Audi is different from other brands. Both parties are happy to see its involvement with Iron Man. In other words, Lyman's attitude towards Audi will be more friendly and enthusiastic, and the same is true for Angelo. How can we say the relationship between the two companies? In essence, they are definitely not so close, but because of the involvement of interests, they support the behavior of increasing Iron Man's popularity, audience recognition and even more public opinion indexes. There is a very true saying in the business world. There is no inexplicable enthusiasm without interests, and there is no need to send letters. On the contrary, if there is mutual benefit, mutual help, and the same direction, whether there is a personal relationship or friendship is not a problem. in the box that specializes in French cuisine. Compared with the previous fanfare, there are only lemon and angelo here at this time. After sipping and tasting, Lemon asked politely, "Does this suit your taste? The chef of this restaurant is very good, and the French food is very authentic." After the polite words, Lemon said, "In my conception, the new Project Avengers does not have a protagonist, but only heroes who appear on the screen. Iron Man is the leader among them. He is very charismatic, isn't he? Yes, Audie is very suitable for such an image, man. This setting is very good." Angelo smiled and said, "So, in order to show our friendship, our company is willing to continue to take the placement of luxury cars 37 million, plus no less than 20 million in publicity resources. This was decided by the company before coming. Is it expensive? A little bit, because this is not a one-man show for Iron Man. Is it worth it? It is worth it. The combination of Audie and Iron Man can deepen the impression on the audience and bring them an increase in the share of luxury cars, which is enough." Chapter 978. Does Shrek still have a future? Obviously, among all the brands seeking product placement cooperation, Audie was the easiest and the fastest to reach. Audie even generously stated that, even if Iron Man was only part of the group play, as long as he had a role in the film, it would be fine. Of course, for Audie executives, Marvel dared to throw out a promise of at least 200 million in one breath, and it was natural that the advertising space would be more expensive. Anyway, their purpose was just to deepen the audience's impression of the connection between the two, and deepen the creation of cool, technological and other conceptual element that young people like. While Lemon was carefully selecting proposals for product placement for various brands, and paying attention to the preparatory matters before the filming of Avengers such as props, costumes, and interior construction, the box office trajectory of Iron Man 2 in the North American film market became clearer. On May 17th, a new week came to an end. Just as Lyman had predicted, Iron Man 2 won 2 consecutive championships, with a total of 212 million in North America in 10 days, surpassing the market of the previous film in the same period as always. However, it is a bit regrettable that as time goes by, the consequences of the inferior quality of the previous film begin to appear. The total amount in the second week dropped by 58.6%, and only 53 million was earned in the 3 days of the second weekend. Not to mention, although the degree of competition in this summer season is not fierce, after 2 weeks of comfort, Iron Man 2 still encountered a strong challenger in the third week, another masterpiece of DreamWorks animation, and the most successful animation project in the series, Shrek the Monsters 4. Paramount's performance this year is indeed fierce. The summer season has just started, but the company has already accumulated $620 million in the North American film market. It seems that it will become the first in 2010 to cross the 1 billion threshold and show its competitiveness to win the annual championship. How to Train Your Dragon is a good example, and the Shrek series is also a work that is well liked by the audience. It is hard not to make money. Moreover, Paramount's arrangement is also very clever. The screening potential of How to Train Your Dragon is almost zero, and Shrek 4 took over. It did not waste a single bit of the schedule market, nor was it stupid enough to compete head-on with Iron Man 2 during its strong period. Moreover, the Memorial Day weekend chosen by Paramount is a commemorative holiday that most states in the United States need to officially make gestures. The atmosphere of watching movies is very high. For example, the finale of the legendary drama Lost was broadcast during this period. In the past, there were also movies such as Terminator 2018, Indiana Jones 4, Pirates of the Caribbean, At World's End, Shrek the Third, X-Men 3, The Last Stand, and Star Wars, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith that were released during this period. If you count carefully, a total of 6 sequels of the series have been released in the past 6 years, and all of them are well-known series with box office revenues of 300 to 400 million yuan, and often open for more than $100 million in the first week. This shows that major film companies attach great importance to this period. Therefore, Paramount has surpassed other film companies to become the only new blockbuster film arranged by theater chain operators for the anniversary. There is no doubt that Paramount's expectations for this green treasure are very high, which can be seen from the exaggerated 4,359 theaters and up to 9,500 screens with ultra-high standard screening treatment. This number also makes Shrek 4 officially surpass the first 3 Shrek series, setting the largest release scale of animated films in film history. Among them, the arrangement of 2,373 3D screens and 194 3D plus IMAX screens also officially surpassed the previous Alice in Wonderland to become a new 3D transcription copy data record in history. It can be said that there is not much to bet on. If you calm down and think about it carefully, Paramount's confident cost investment is also well founded. Anyone can clearly see that market feedback cannot be faked. It is found that the Shrek series is one of the few films with higher return rates in the field of Hollywood animation. It has bred 2 series of works with box office revenues of over $100 million. At the same time, it is also the only 2 animation projects with box office revenues of over $100 million so far. How can you not be confident? Can the theaters not support it? You know, the second film in the series has maintained the highest box office record of animated films in film history for 6 years, and this record is still continuing, which makes old rivals Disney and Pixar feel embarrassed. Disney brags every year that it will rewrite the animation record, but in the end, all the trump cards have been smashed and bloodied by Shrek. Unfortunately, the market is not a series market after all, and the audience is not always the same audience. Although Shrek 4 debuted with a high profile, the box office was not as good as Paramount expected. Paramount executives said in an interview that $90 million in the first week was their psychological average. What was the result? 4,359 theaters only opened $71.25 million in the first week, and a data of less than 16,400 per theater on the weekend really did not deserve such publicity and promotion. Paramount was a little dumbfounded, and even the producer DreamWorks Animation was confused. Because this result not only did not reach the average opening line of the series, but was also much lower, even worse than the data of the first pioneering work. The reason for this is that we have to start with the most fundamental secret of the success of the Shrek series. 4 words, spoiling the classics. Unlike the common success models of Disney, Pixar, etc., the core selling point of DreamWorks' Shrek series is to take the works of predecessors and destroy them for fun. In short, it is anti-routine. Such a model is very popular in today's online literary circles, not to mention the field of equally templated animated films. For example, scary movies, which made countless film critics foam at the mouth, also made profits by anti-routine. But if you win by anti-routine, you will definitely lose by routine. After the previous few films turned over everything that could be turned over one by one, the weakness of lack of innovation was slowly revealed. Finally, when the series entered the 4th part, the screenwriter found that there were very few materials available for spoofs, and the audience's evaluation was generally that the essence of the series was lost. Is Shrek 4 bad? No, it is still successful, but the height of success has been reduced a lot, especially under the background of cost expenditure. It is visibly bleak. You can even say that, after going against the routine to the end, Shrek has no novelty, and the audience no longer has the sense of surprise. Of course, the first week revenue of $71.25 million can still pull down the top spot of the weekly chart where Iron Man 2 is sitting. In addition, another new work in the same period, Worms, produced by Universal, which is to some extent an extended version of the comedy part of the same name in Saturday Night Live, took away the embarrassing opening data of $4.1 million amid a chorus of criticism. This film is a bit like the brain-dead detective saves the world route learned from Glengarry Glen Ross and Pink Panther. But unfortunately, the audience does not buy it. It can also be said that director Jorma's comedy skills are not good enough. Chapter 979 Crisis Resolved. After Paramount's Shrek 4 failed to achieve the box office success it deserved, their publicity campaign changed, and they started playing the sentimental card. On Tuesday after the first week, at a press conference held by Paramount, they told reporters that the Shrek series would not have another installment, and that their story had ended. This argument made many viewers sigh. After all, this series is a beautiful passage in the memories of many viewers, which has suppressed the downward trend. However, there are too many negative feedbacks, and it is unlikely to be a big hit. This cannot be changed by any public opinion campaign. Of course, the most sensational thing in Hollywood at the end of May was not the end of the Shrek series. On May 19th, Fox suddenly reached an agreement with Disney and announced that it would officially take over the production of the third installment of Disney's Chronicles of Narnia series. The director was still Michael Apted, who was previously selected by Disney. So, who is director Apted, and why is he valued by Disney and Fox? Well, speaking of this person, she is quite remarkable and well known in the industry. First of all, this person once served as the president of the Directors Guild of America, but he is a British director and a top student of the law department of Cambridge University. When he first set foot in Hollywood, he made a sensation in the film critics with The Miner's Daughter, which was praised as a proposition like Anderson's The Red Shoes, with sadness and the brightness and strength rising from the bottom of the heart. He was nominated for the Best Picture at the same Oscars, and then was nominated for the Oscar for The Mist Forest in 1988, and finally won the Best Actress award. In other words, when he was invited to come out this time, Disney originally thought that director Apted could use his rigorous structure, perhaps because he was born in the law department. The narrative structure of this person's work is well controlled, to make up for the narrative confusion and imbalance of the climax in the previous film. But why did Disney make so much effort and finally give it to Fox? It's also very simple. Didn't the screening of Prince Caspian in 2008 fall short of expectations, with a low rate of return and even a near loss due to negative reviews from many parties? Unable to tolerate the ruin of such a good situation, Disney fired the director Andrew Adamson in a rage, and had a quarrel with the hired producer Walton in the subsequent profit sharing. Of course, the global market for the film was sluggish, so there was nothing to be angry about. Later, Disney's production plan also decided to cut costs and start filming the third part, and hired Michael Apted as the new director. However, in the middle of the preparation, it was felt that it was uncontrollable, and the disastrous failure of Ink had also reminded that the magic theme was gradually becoming less popular. Therefore, after discussing the possibility of the film's box office success many times, Disney executives still felt that the market was unclear and the risk was too high, and finally decided to withdraw from the film's investment. Somehow, when the senior executives of Fox, who had not made any big moves for a long time, heard the news, they felt that Disney was too timid. There is definitely a market for magical themes, but it just needs some control over quality and high visual effects. Fox is confident. After all, visual effects and action movies like Wolverine sell very well, but they are suffering from the lack of suitable themes for their team to play. Now, they think the opportunity has come, and they're hurried to Disney to discuss whether they will take over the investment. As a result, everyone knows that Fox paid a part of the price, and Disney can also rely on Fox's funds to increase the popularity and breadth of the series. The two sides hit it off, and Disney transferred the production rights of the series to Fox, allowing them to produce and distribute. At this press conference, compared to the fans' focus on the retention of the leading actors, the new director has been determined, and other shooting teams and cast lineups. The media reporters are very interested in a person who appeared at the conference, that is, Rupert Murdoch, the head of Fox, who has not appeared in public for some time. Yes, it is strange that Murdoch has almost hidden himself since the bugging scandal, but now he is much more open and above board. But soon, everyone also found that the politicians in the UK did not continue to hold on to this topic, and even stopped advocating the stupid talk that News Corporation controls too many media. You see, this world is so magical. Such a fuse that can destroy a behemoth, except for causing News Corporation to lose several newspapers and slow down the development of the established layout, kept a low profile for a while, as if nothing had happened. No one knows what actions Murdoch took to cover up this incident, but everyone knows that Fox also survived. The crisis was resolved. For a time, Fox made continuous moves in the field of production. In addition to taking over the banner of the Chronicles of Narnia in a high-profile manner, it also ensured that the sequel to Wolverine had been put on the agenda, constantly showing its own strength and background, and looking like it was going to compete with Paramount, which had the best performance, for the final annual crown. In comparison, Warner seems to be very different. They are still a little confused this year, and they seem to have personally confirmed the vicious circle theory of Hollywood. That is, when one studio rises, another studio goes downhill. Paramount's performance rise seems to have sucked away Warner's luck. In this way, unknowingly, the fourth week of May ended. Iron Man 2 only earned $660 this weekend, and the decline became more obvious, but the cumulative North American box office reached $250 million and the global box office reached $487 million US dollars. Overall, although it did not continue the strong reputation of the first film, it is definitely better in terms of performance. After all, there is a sequel bonus. It is worth mentioning that this week Disney's Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, a work adapted from the classic video game of the same name, was ridiculed by gamers. Among them, Jake Gyllenhaal, one of the leading actors, was heavily criticized for playing a Middle Eastern protagonist as a white man, forcing him to publicly state that he was not right to accept the role, and that he had learned a lesson from it. I think I learned a lot from this movie. It made me more cautious in casting, and think about why I chose them. You do get frustrated because of some roles that are not suitable for you, but there will be other suitable choices. Poor Jake may only be thankful that, although he was scolded for playing this film, the film's performance is not bad. Overall, the negative public opinion did not cover up the satisfaction of passers-by with the action scenes presented in the film. In the bustling summer movie market, Lyman was also very busy and fulfilled in the post-production of The Tuna, and he was quite happy in it. Seeing a movie that twists and turns again and again take shape in his hands, that kind of feeling, is quite joyful for the director. Chapter 980, Long Planned. Goodbye, dear. In the Rust manner, Lyman put the packed suitcase into the trunk, watched Eva sit in the back seat, and waved goodbye to her. After filming most of the interior scenes of the Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn, it will set off to New Zealand to film the rest of the scenes. As a producer, Eva will naturally set off together. During this period of transition and learning, Eva gradually gave people the feeling of a strong woman. According to Blake, director Chris Weitz was very satisfied with her work and allowed him to concentrate on filming. Maybe I have to stay there for a month or two. Take care of yourself. Eva said goodbye to Lyman, and the car slowly drove out of the gate. Of course, Lyman didn't feel much about this short separation. The occasional sense of distance and independence is what many lovers need. This only represents his point of view. After a while, Lyman also drove out and went to the company. In addition to checking the market for Iron Man 2, which was still declining as usual, he also asked about the arrangements for the follow-up works. Boss in the office, Lyman presented a marketing plan for Inception and said, "This is a publicity and promotion plan we developed with Sony Columbia. The general idea is to operate in a long-term cycle, because it is scheduled to be released on July 17th. In addition to the early preheating, the film will simultaneously release all the trailers and highlights in the global market at the end of June, and then the leading actors will enter a high-intensity online and offline exposure. After the premiere, they will contact those film critics and reporters to lay the foundation for word of mouth, and then drive online audience discussions. As for the resources after the release, Columbia said that it will look at the first week's chart performance and the single theater attendance rate to coordinate and arrange according to the situation." Lyman leaned back in his chair and listened quietly to Lyman continue. "As for the hype during the promotion period, we plan to let Heath Ledger take advantage of the popularity of Batman. Our company has business dealings with Warner and the relationship is not bad. As long as the degree of control throughout the process is within the acceptable range for both parties, Warner will definitely not deliberately destroy it. After all, the Batman series has not yet ended, and Warner may also hope to awaken the memories of more audience fans. As for the rest, it's still the old routine. Whether it's Dyer or Ellen Page, they all have their own fan base and have always been very popular with the public. As long as the exposure is raised, it won't be a problem for the audience to pay for tickets for their favorite actors. What's more, director Nolan himself has a large audience and loyal fans. In addition, Inception adds a lot of brain-burning element, which brings a sense of style. There is no need to worry that this aspect will lower the impression. After Lyman finished speaking, Lyman looked at the 55 million figure in the pre-scheduled publicity budget column and nodded. Okay, let's do it. Remember to let our online publicity department bring up the topic of dream interpretation in advance after the film is released. The film itself is of high quality and brain-burning. The audience is likely to feel a sense of intellectual pleasure when watching it, and it may even be a bit challenging. By the way, how is the preparation for the Golden State Comic Con going? Lyman asked. I have discussed it with the venue organizer, and preparations for some exhibition halls are already underway. The Golden State Comic Con, also known as the San Diego International Comic Con, is the most in-depth and influential non-profit gathering of otaku culture in the United States. If you have to talk about its status, if an American discusses the word Comic Con with friends, everyone will default to SDCC, because when talking about other comic exhibitions, you have to add the name of the place in front of Comic Con, such as the Los Angeles Comic Con. In 2005, the number of participants of the Golden State Comic Con exceeded 100,000, and it boosted the surrounding economy by 70 million. Today, SDCC has become an international comprehensive event, rather than a niche self-entertainment gathering. Here, manufacturers can directly connect with the most hardcore users in the circle to test the waters. For example, in 1977, George Lucas brought the fledgling first Star Wars to promote. In 1994, the Independent Publishing Exhibition was launched to give independent and niche comics the opportunity to enter the market. Later, as the exhibition became more and more prestigious in the comics industry and even the entertainment industry, many large manufacturers and celebrities gradually paid attention to SDCC and used it as a propaganda position. You can even think of it as a game internal test that needs to find a group of senior players in the field to give their opinions to see if they can impress them, so as to evaluate the prospects of its products and play a role in preheating the market. In other words, Lyman also wants to use this as a platform for the first journey of MCU to speak out, and then implement a 5-month publicity cycle to arouse the interest of the audience step by step. After understanding the boss's intention, Marvel Entertainment and Blue Butterfly Pictures quickly formed a team to be responsible for the Golden State Comic Con. After more than 2 months of hard work, they finally worked out the process and layout of the exhibition hall. It was in the area assigned to them by the comic exhibition. Martini, who was in charge of Marvel's offline activities, looked at the drawings piled in front of him. The images after printing were very intuitive. After all, this is a multi-role, multi-element exhibition hall. The use of the venue should give people a neat impression. In terms of layout, I think it should be mainly based on wraparound and open counters. The distance and width between each counter should be controlled, and there should be no crowding. Other propaganda slogans, signboards, and explanations of the New York War and various forces ready? Martini asked his subordinates. Ready. The counter needs to consider the lighting problem. Try to choose thin glass, but also consider safety. He looked at the person in charge of counter design. Don't worry, we have already found a business to customize it. For this exhibition, the main bosses and company executives will come. Marvel has never attached so much importance to and invested in this kind of comic exhibition activities before. Therefore, according to Martina's idea, the exhibition must provide comfortable enjoyment for tourists and otaku culture enthusiasts, and all kinds of processes must be handled with attitude. It is not only to show his execution ability to his superiors and bosses, but also to create momentum. Safety must be the first priority, and the neatness and beauty of the exhibition is the second. Martini gestured and said seriously, now we can still discuss more and go through the process a few more times, but when it really starts in July, I don't want us to make mistakes when I'm not here, understand? Don't worry, boss. The whole team brainstormed hard, and various renderings were rejected in batches, causing the design institute that took the job to complain. Obviously, it was not a useless effort. The rest is nothing more than waiting for the decoration team to enter the site and controlling the results. Chapter 981. All members gather. As soon as they got off the plane, The reporters who came after hearing the news went to work. Director Nolan, what is your new movie about? Can you tell us more about it? Nolan, let's talk about Batman. When will the third movie be shot? Do you have a plan? Do you think your new movie can still be successful? Can you talk about what do you think of him? How do you think of him starring in your movie this time? Who do you think is better, Dyer or Bale? The Los Angeles reporters fanned the flames and tried to dig out the inside story, but Nolan just got into his brother Jonathan's car with a helpless look on his face and didn't want to pay any attention. How is the situation here? Nolan had just come from the UK, and he immediately started to understand his own business. The schedule, publicity, and contact with theaters are all going on in an orderly manner. What we need to worry about is whether the audience likes Inception and whether they recognize this type of creation. This time, Nolan's studio accounted for 20% of the box office share of the project, and he was more concerned about his own profits. In addition, Warner Bros. Has been contacting him more and more often. The launch of Batman Part 3 is about to be delayed. This enthusiasm is beyond his imagination, and it can even be said to be urgent. But if you know that Warner Bros. Still has not launched a project that has exceeded $300 million in North America this year, and there are more small fights, and watching other competitors constantly push blockbusters, you may understand their anxious mood to prepare Batman. Apart from anything else, The Dark Knight is so popular that even the DVD has sold more than 10 million copies. Although the audience's recognition makes Nolan a little proud, the more so, the less likely Warner Bros. Will let it go. Jonathan seemed to remember this, and he mentioned, just the day before yesterday, Lyman found me and showed me the first version of the script outline of Batman Part 3. It seems that they want to continue to release the role of the Joker and rearrange the fateful confrontation. Reheating old things will inevitably consume the market for movies. Don't they understand? Nolan had a headache. That's what Lyman said, and then he turned it down. Forget it, just focus on the promotion of Inception. The second film set too high, which was a problem in itself, and she was somewhat trapped by her own tricks. In the afternoon, a car drove into the parking lot outside the New Line studio. After getting out of the car, Scarlett was still asking her agent for information. What do you mean by the director suddenly wanting to see me? I don't know, but it must not be a bad thing, the agent said, preparing to enter the building with Scarlett. After the big sale of Iron Man 2, Scarlett became more and more popular with the role of Black Widow. Just when she was feeling lucky that she had bet on the casting in advance and dyed her hair color, she received a call from Mr. Last's assistant, and the location was exactly the studio under Firefly. Johansson Scarlett? The paparazzi who had been squatting outside the major studios for many years saw her and rushed over. Have you received a new play again? Is it a new project of Marvel? As the most news-conscious representative in the circle, the paparazzi wanted to dig up the news. No comment, no comment. The agent stopped them and escorted Scarlett through the gate. What are you doing? Along the way, the two saw a lot of people setting up the venue. The scene was quite lively, as if confirming the paparazzi's words about the new Marvel movie. Such a commotion was also the reason why the paparazzi were squatting. Could it be your movie? The agent also began to doubt. What? Scarlett was puzzled. Remember the long-term contract we signed? They promised to give us enough scenes. Now the situation may be that they will shoot a one-man show for your character. Just like Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, and Thor, Marvel has the space to create stars alone. And from the comic setting, the Black Widow you play is a mature agent when she appears. If you shoot a prequel, I'm not surprised at all. This is very likely in Hollywood. At least, your character is very likable and the audience recognizes it. The agent became more and more excited as he spoke, and his ability to fill in his own imagination was maximized. However, Black Widow is indeed quite likable. In the questionnaire survey of Iron Man 2, the audience's evaluation of it is not low. It may be because the audience is mostly male, and they are all LS. Who doesn't want to see a character who is agile, good-looking, and good-looking appear more often? This is also the reason why Black Widow has a separate work in the future, but the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., who has a strong presence, has no similar plan. To put it bluntly, if popularity is to be transformed into actual value, risk control is still very necessary. Superman can overturn, let alone others. Chris Evans and Mark Ruffalo were chatting at the door. Seeing Scarlett Johansson from the same camp coming over, they couldn't help but say hello. Hey, you are here too. Huh. What are you doing? The two were still wearing their iconic costumes, looking a little silly. Oh, you don't know yet? Then you will understand when you see the director. Ruffalo looked at the confusion in her expression and reminded with a smile. This is exactly the case. Because the creators of Iron Man 2 were busy with roadshows and promotions, Scarlett and her team were not informed of the early preparations for Avengers. They only talked with other actors who had free time about salary, shooting cycle and other trivial matters. It was not until the screening potential of Iron Man 2 was greatly reduced, and most of the box office results were basically obtained, that Lemon began to follow up on this part. In this way, with some confusion, Scarlett entered the room and met Lemon. The room was very large, and there were many people, and not only Captain America and the Hulk were there, but also Hawkeye, Fuckman, and Downey, who had been promoting with him a few days ago, were also present. At this moment, Lemon was discussing something with Downey. On the 4th day of the comic convention, which is also the last day, you can talk about the anti-Hulk armor we brought out. It's bulky, but the power arm can temporarily fight against the violent Hulk personality. Also, after revealing some information about Avengers, we will arrange fan signings. You can discuss with your own economic team how to do it better at that time. Around the two of them, prop masters, event staff, etc. were waiting for orders at any time. Compared with the last meeting, Scarlett only felt that Lemon had a more majestic aura. Boss, Scarlett is here. Assistant Mace reminded during the conversation. Hey, come over, we all know each other. Lemon politely asked about his recent life, and the focus was still on the topic of the Golden State Comic Convention. It's not easy. To be honest, with the efforts of hundreds of people, I won't allow any mistakes. Besides, our every move involves a lot of money and a lot of people's work, right? I'll prepare in advance. Scarlett understood why so many actors from Marvel's camp gathered together today. Considering the news of Avengers was released, Hollywood was shaken again. It was also the first time she knew that Marvel's ambition was so big, but for some reason, she felt lucky to be able to participate in it. At this time, someone pushed the door and entered. Okay, our Loki is here too. Lemon smiled. For some reason, Tom Hiddleston felt a little cold. Chapter 980 to Comic Exhibition Storm. 2010 Golden State Comic Con was the 41st since its opening. Some of the photos released earlier attracted countless people with lofty ideals, and Olsen was one of them. On July 5th, 2 days before the opening, Olsen set off from his hometown of Clark County, Arkansas. When he set off, he was full of expectations, because this was his first time to attend the Golden State Comic Con. However, he had seen many group photos uploaded by other exhibitors on Facebook. The atmosphere in the photos was just right. He also learned from other channels that this time Hasbro would jointly release the concept poster of the Battle of Chicago, Transformers 3, with Paramount and some other big companies would participate. In addition, there were those hardcore cosplayers. Last year, a girl's cosplay of the MAGA orcs in World of Warcraft was directly screened on Facebook, and he could not forget it. He wanted to go to the scene to experience this circle in person. To say that this trip with some expectations is really something that an introvert like Olsen cannot resist. He seldom goes out. The world is different now. Mobile phones and computers have become new channels for receiving and expressing information. He doesn't feel out of touch with society when he's at home every day. If the comic exhibition is not in Golden State, he would be too excited and it would scratch his itch, but he wouldn't want to go so far. Maybe this is the ritual of otaku culture. The wind is blowing, the sun is shining, and a person is driving on the vast highway. The melody of the radio music played by the car stereo is so pleasant. Occasionally, he passes by a gas station, buys a pack of cigarettes and a bottle of happy water, and then continues to move towards his destination. After all, Clark County, Arkansas, where Olsen is located, is still quite far from San Diego, California. If you don't count the straight line distance, it's about 1,700 miles. Even in modern society, with a well-developed intercity transportation network, it is already considered a long distance. You have to drive all day without sleep. If you drive and stop, it will definitely take longer, so Olsen gave himself 2 days to arrange everything. However, from a feeling point of view, summer is actually a good season for traveling far away. Although it is a bit hot at noon, driving in the morning and evening is not a pain, and the weather is good, and it rarely rains. But even so, if the temptation of the comic exhibition has not always been hovering in Olsen's heart, he would have felt that this trip was not easy and wanted to back out. Of course, he is better than most people. Although he is not a rich second generation, his family has a certain financial strength. He can afford the expenses of driving himself, gas along the way, staying in a hotel at the comic exhibition, eating, and buying some interesting peripherals. Except for the fact that driving is really tiring, everything else is fine. When we arrived in California, it was already the next morning. Because he rested for more than 7 hours in a motel on the way last night, his mental state was maintained well. In fact, the closer he got to San Diego, the more excited he was when he met some people who were also participating in the exhibition, and some cosplayers who had already dressed up. In fact, the number of participants at the Golden State Comic Exhibition has increased by an average of 5 percentage points in recent years. The otaku culture enthusiasts who gather here from all over the world can find some common topics, and because of the rich atmosphere, they can also be bold. Even if they don't know each other, it's still interesting to talk. Olsen made clear preparations in advance. He found a hotel, booked a room, and parked his car before he went to the gathering to get the ticket. The Golden State Comic Exhibition is divided into two types, full-time and single day. But even if there is no admission ticket, the side meeting next to it is worth visiting. The latter is because the flow of people in recent years is too large, and it cannot be received. The government took the initiative to help host and maintain it. Of course, Olsen, who grabbed the ticket in advance, must enter the venue. Although the comic exhibition is not open, there are always people serving at the window next to it. Just wait for the verification to get the ticket stub as an admission certificate. He lined up, and the people around him were also chatting excitedly. I heard Columbia is going to remake Bruce Lee's first film, The Green Hornet? I think so. I saw Sony Music admit it the day before yesterday, and they said there would be a mysterious surprise. Did Blizzard say there was a new concept? I don't know. Well, I'm quite concerned about the news about How to Train Your Dragon. Paramount said it would release a concept poster at the comic convention together with the third Transformers movie. I'm looking forward to it. Olsen kept listening with his ears perked up until the crowd moved forward, and it was his turn to get his admission card. A volunteer lady wearing a small hat next to him reminded him, "You have to keep this well." In addition to the inspection for joining the club, you can also buy things for the venue at the surrounding hotels and get discounts. Yes, yes. Seeing the ladies smile, Olsen's heart was thumping. He even looked back as he walked to the side. Because the venue was not officially open until 9 AM tomorrow, Olsen walked around the venue without giving up, but he didn't see anything interesting. Instead, cosplayers began to gather in this place, and all kinds of realistic costumes made him dazzled. Occasionally, I meet my favorite characters, muster up the courage to strike up a conversation, take photos, and use photos to commemorate my journey. It is quite meaningful and not boring. Especially compared to the interesting things I saw on Facebook in the past. It is a different feeling to see the real person here. How should I put it? With the development of the times, the sense of participation offline cannot be given online. Looking at the gradually hot atmosphere around, full of element of animation, games, and movies, or various statues in a 1-to-1 ratio, all give people a very comfortable atmosphere. And this place is worthy of being a paradise for American otaku culture. During the rally, even the surrounding businesses have replaced many otaku element. At noon, when Olsen went to eat, he could see many signs posted around. When he bought a bottle of water, the boss would ask him if he came to the comic exhibition. At night, I returned to the booked hotel. Olsen remembered what the volunteer lady said when he received the admission ticket today. He was about to ask if the hotel cooperated with the comic exhibition. If not, he might plan to change to another one. When he took out the voucher, the front desk smiled and said, "Are you also attending the comic exhibition? Sorry, our people neglected it. If you stay in our hotel during this period, you should enjoy a 15% discount on the room rate. I will help you re-enter the information." Okay, thank you. Olsen quickly took out his driver's license. In the United States, a driver's license is equivalent to an ID card, and handed him the Golden State Comic Exhibition voucher to show him the corresponding information and date. Then, he was fooled into applying for a 5-day room package. After all, the merchants who cooperate with the comic exhibition are profitable and come to the door on their own initiative. The full ticket, including tonight, is not there a demand for 5 days. Chapter 983 Marvel Distributors. In the preparations before the official start of the comic exhibition, in addition to calling the main creators to appear on stage and increase the starlight, Lyman also called dealers from all over the country in the name of Marvel Entertainment to communicate in advance. On the morning of July 5th, there were about 100 representatives from all over the country who received the news and gathered. From the overall scale, it is enough to see that Marvel's authorized toys have been successful in the market share in the IP field in recent years. Of course, some of these dealers were built by the previous Marvel leadership, and some were merchants and stores that came to contact one after another when the sales of authorized products such as Iron Man and Captain America were hot. The rest are the distribution channels operated by Hasbro and the gradually emerging e-commerce platforms. As we all know, production and sales are two links. In terms of production, Marvel does not have many manufacturers to deal with, and Hasbro is still responsible for the bulk. Therefore, the part that Marvel Entertainment spends the most energy on, from senior management to new employees, is actually to negotiate the supply of sources with dealers from all over the country. This principle is very similar, from Apple selling mobile phones to sending agricultural products to the market. The fact that these people were willing to come to Marvel headquarters must have shown that these dealers were very optimistic about Marvel's prospects in the licensing market. Inside the venue, Marvel had already arranged everything. When the projector, flower clusters, and mineral water were arranged properly, and the brochures of Marvel's various products were placed on the table, Lyman and David Mazur and other core management personnel were waiting at the door to greet everyone. The dealers were also very polite. Seeing that Lyman, the chairman of Marvel, was so polite, they greeted them enthusiastically. Of course, this is what they did, but these old timers might be thinking, why do you have to make trouble for no reason? Why do you have to make such a trouble and make us run all the way? But since we are here, just listen. There is money to be made, and it is not a shame. For companies like Hasbro that have closer contacts with Marvel, the participating representatives are familiar with Lyman and will take the initiative to chat a few more words, deliberately taking care of the relationship between the two sides. After all, when Firefly, led by Lyman, gradually gained a position in the Hollywood production landscape and became a production brand that cannot be underestimated, it did not make steady progress in the original production field, but instead made a surprising move to acquire Marvel and enter the larger and more complex IP comic adaptation market. This decision certainly did not hesitate for Lyman, but in the eyes of dealers, the courage and ability to take over Marvel, which was almost at its twilight, can be said to be based on strong confidence. Just look at the output value of Marvel today, and you will know that he can revitalize such a garbage asset that has been divided up, and he is also a famous international director. Even if some of them don't know much about the film and television industry, they are somewhat impressed. Compared with DC, this IP asset that is completely controlled by Warner was once glorious, but it cannot be realized well until now. The timid look all day long can show the difficulty. In other words, what has happened in the past few years has also given merchants who run stores an additional source of income for purchasing goods, which is not a miracle. Hasbro's representative Lyman found his seat and sat down. Hasbro is a major distributor, and he sat in the front row. After flipping through the materials on the table, Lyman quickly closed them again. People like them don't care about these fancy brochures, and the social concepts of the company are all empty. They only look at the actual results and output benefits. However, He has some ideas about the so-called team value in the brochure, the New York battle printed on the brochure, the setting that deepens a sense of camp, and the market feedback that the marginal characters such as Hawkeye can't be sold inexplicably make Lyman feel familiar. You know, he witnessed with his own eyes how the classic toy series Transformers under Hasbro exploded in sales through the amplification effect of film and television entertainment. Of course, even though he has worked for Hasbro, a large toy manufacturer that operates its own stores, for more than 10 years, and has a better understanding of the market demand for the rise of fan economy, he doesn't quite understand what this brochure wants to say. Until the projector on the stage was turned on, Kevin Feige took the lead in showing and explaining the output value of each series of works, and asked why the market sales of each character are usually very single, and the overlap rate is not high, even though they are all superheroes. The overlap rate here refers to the consumption direction of the target audience. Hearing this, Lyman nodded with emotion. Take Transformers for example. Some people like Bumblebee and only buy Bumblebee's peripheral products. If we magnify the audience's love, there is rarely consumption without preference. This is why there has always been a term called character economy in the licensing market. That is, production on the assembly line, and the value of some characters will be higher. So, how can we develop the market for characters with low economic value? Kevin asked another question, and there was silence below. Everyone was listening carefully. So, one of the things we want to do next at Marvel is to blur the attributes of individual characters. Think about it, when Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, including Hawkeye, Black Widow, and the Hulk, act as saviors and heroes as a team, will the fans' love spread from individual characters to other characters? We are not completely changing preferences, but reducing the sense of distance between characters. On the PPT, one circle leads another circle and eventually forms the Avengers. Overall, it seems that the line at the boundary also connects other independent characters in the process. Can this really be done? Will the arrangement and positioning of the roles be unclear? Will the audience buy it? Lyman had countless questions in his mind at once, but in addition to questioning, he was also thinking that, if it could really be done, then the value of Marvel would be different. Originally, the field of character IP is very similar to the top field of online literature. There are always only a few with high value. Most of them have no controllable business development foundation. Just like Marvel at the beginning, it had more than 5,000 characters, but they were not valuable in the eyes of outsiders. The ones with traffic, such as Spider-Man, X-Men, and Fantastic Four, were all bought by others. But now suddenly someone said that the reason why these more than 5,000 characters are not valuable is because the traffic for monetization is not enough. Since the traffic is not enough, use the traffic system that has been developed to bring it. In fact, there is nothing wrong with this cause and effect itself. Who doesn't know that in the era of traffic, the audience's attention value can be monetized? But do you also understand that traffic is so easy to create? If it was so easy, would DC need to grab the wool of Batman and Superman all the time? They didn't let go, even after being plucked bald. Is it because they don't understand the importance of development? Of course not. It's just that reality has told Warner again and again that the audience doesn't like to watch other character projects of DC. There is no foundation, and they won't spend money, so project establishment is risky. But what Kevin wants to express now is, we at Marvel have found a model to expand the character economy, just like taking advantage of the audience's trust in the Marvel brand, secretly inserting private goods, constantly bringing in the old and the new, and expanding the top traffic with the freshness brought by new characters. Before this, Lyman, like many people, found it difficult to understand why Marvel kept developing new characters and its actions were so radical compared to other themes in the same field. In 3 years, only one popular sequel was shot, and the others were all new projects. Aren't they afraid of messing up? They are so reckless. Now I gradually understand that what everyone is paying attention to is not the same thing. Marvel is playing a serial nature, and they wish the more complicated and bigger the pattern, but they just keep adding to the original system, and they have to be careful to maintain the wall so that it doesn't collapse. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 984. No progress means regression. What a talent. Since the launch of Iron Man, with a series of production and operation methods, the growth rate of assets has been amazing. I didn't expect to hear such a plan today. I'm afraid that the value of the Marvel brand will increase several times or even dozens of times. This rolling speed is so fast. That also requires success. There are not so many things that go as planned in this world. The eyes of those who are optimistic, pessimistic, admiring, and stupid gathered together, but none of them affected the process of this dealer meeting. Everyone has different opinions on various things. After all, Marvel's goal is to reveal the future pace to upstream and downstream partners in advance. It doesn't matter if you don't understand. After David, the director of Marvel Entertainment's brand image marketing department, made a prospective speech on Marvel's future, the scene became lively when it came to the specific questioning stage. Have you planned the marketing of the new project and its derivatives? When will it be planned? December. This December. In fact, we have almost finished preparing for the filming, except for a press conference with a gimmick. You can pay attention to the upcoming Golden State Comic Exhibition. Lyman kept it a secret. This is indeed the case. A high-profile opening is very conducive to the promotion of the project. Have the quotations for each product for our dealers changed? Don't worry, the bargaining power will definitely not change. We will still distribute the goods uniformly to ensure everyone's interests. Everyone calmed down a lot after hearing this. Although the labor and materials used in the derivatives are different, after deducting the costs, the profit margin left is enough to distribute. But how to say it, Marvel will definitely increase the e-commerce and flagship experience store direct sales model in the future and try to get rid of the dependence on offline distribution. Of course, there is no need to talk about this. The continued development of the internet has actually allowed many manufacturers to jump out of the original channel system. It is easier to control merchants connecting with users than adding a few more links. After everyone had a clear idea, they heard Lyman say, everyone knows the selling point of Marvel. It first relies on the movie to heat up the market, and then expands the audience's favor and influence of the characters at multiple levels. In addition, it takes advantage of the advantages accumulated by the comic medium itself, so the profit margin is not illusory and can be estimated based on real results. If I say more now, it seems like I'm just drawing a pie in the sky. Is the data the most real? Marvel Entertainment does not eat alone. When there is money, everyone takes care of each other and makes money together. So, more specifically, we look forward to whether our new project can drive the surrounding industries. In addition, we hope that you can take care of us more in the supply channels. Marvel's dealer conference lasted for most of the day, but Lyman only attended the indoor report in the morning. In the afternoon, when it came to the specific visit to the design of the derivative products for sale, Lyman and Kevin, the boss in charge of production, did not show up again, but let David and other Marvel Entertainment executives accompany them. Of course, the effect of holding such a meeting is still good. First, it allows dealers to re-evaluate the weight of Marvel in the licensing market. Secondly, knowing the existence of the new project can make preliminary judgments and preparations for the next step of supply operation. If I must say, this is actually an important signal. At least I don't know if this big move will allow major shopping malls to increase their supply reserves, which will reduce the overall supply pressure a lot. This can also be regarded as a happy trouble, because Lyman knows how much the emergence of the Avengers and this iconic milestone will add to Marvel. In other words, the licensing economy of Marvel's characters is actually good now, and derivatives like Iron Man are gradually being loved by more people. But after the Avengers, it will usher in an overbearing increase like Avatar. This span was once enjoyed by Disney, and such an economic chain directly allowed them to swallow up giants of the same level. Exaggerated. At night, Lyman returned to the manor, preparing to read a few scripts before taking a break. During this time, Lyman called and said, our movie's single-day attendance has fallen below the baseline again, and the daily output is less than 200,000. Warner plans to close a screening on Thursday night next week. How much is the box office? Lemon asked. Did it meet our expectations? It's not very ideal, but it won't lose money after all. Lyman analyzed helplessly. At the beginning, the market's enthusiasm for watching movies was still very high. After all, there was the market established by the previous work and new audiences who watched it through subsequent home entertainment channels. But maybe the story's sense of drama was not strong enough. After the reputation dropped a lot, it soon entered a period of weakness. Now, North America has exceeded 340 million, and overseas has also earned $310 million US. But added together, it is only more than 30 million higher than the first one. The global box office of the first film directed by Lyman was 622 million. Considering the effect of the superposition of popularity, this result can be said to be very unremarkable. What other reasons do you think led to the film's poor performance? In addition to the fact that the plot is not as exciting as the first film, the climax of the self-introduction is not as full as some film critics have commented. Many scenes emphasize Iron Man's opponents and the newly joined Black Widow, which is a bit of a loss. In addition, the new director's appeal is not enough, and he cannot bring traffic and public opinion to our project through himself. Lyman sighed and said with some worry, if this trend continues, Iron Man's fans will not be as sticky as we imagined, or the existence of Downey must make us give him more room for roles, which limits the breadth of creative play. It can be said that there are pros and cons. Moreover, I have some doubts that, if the third film is still like this, the enthusiasm of the audience may decline further, and the market feedback will be worse. Lyman implicitly pointed out that he was not optimistic about the prospects of the third film in the series, and Lemon heard it. This kind of thing is very normal in the film industry. Shrek the Monsters has ended, and Spider-Man has no room for improvement in the third film. On the contrary, the risk continues to rise. Many examples are telling practitioners how difficult it is to have a series with a healthy creative cycle. Do you think that with Downey's influence, the salary for the third film will increase again, and the cost will be out of balance with the market? Lemon asked in a positive tone. I think there are some hidden dangers in this regard. Lyman replied, I roughly calculated that Downey should be able to take at least $35 million US in remuneration including the salary for the second film under the profit-sharing contract. With this calculation, with his popularity, if the lead actor is not changed, the profit for the third film will be less than 50 million. This does limit our project operation and promotion. What you said makes sense, but Downey's value has not exceeded my headline. He can get so much money, not because we are very generous, but because we are evaluating his influence on the market. We think that giving up him will cause us a great loss, and the subsequent production plan still cannot do without him. Downey can bring us much more income than we pay, right? So, this is also the difficult part. I'm a little worried that the cost of the third film will be too high and then fail. Once it fails, all our efforts in this series will be invalid. Don't worry, it will never be like this. Lemon hung up the phone. In fact, the slow pace of breaking out of the circle is also a market factor that restricts the Iron Man. Chapter 985 Redefinition. There are quite a few representatives like Olsen who have traveled a long way from faraway places to participate in the exhibition in the past few days. Regardless of whether it is the first time or a regular here, the gradually laid out hot atmosphere of otaku element can leave a satisfactory impression on everyone. After all, for otaku culture enthusiasts, it is indeed indispensable to have a gathering of this nature, not to mention that the Golden State Comic Exhibition is very particular about details, arrangements, and support from manufacturers. In this way, the people who came here from all over the world, let alone getting any spiritual pleasure, soon greatly stimulated the consumption around the comic exhibition. Spending time to participate in such offline activities will have some expenses, even if there are some promotional discounts in some means. The ultimate goal is to better stimulate people to spend money. Stay in a hotel, buy surroundings, and keep snacks and drinks in your hands while strolling. Such occasions can actually tempt people to consume and participate, especially those who know how to do business. There are never many people in the world. Snack stalls of various flavors, mobile fast food, and quick brew drinks surround the comic exhibition, fully squeezing the wallets of tourists. However, if you want to have a good time, you must have a large venue and endless new things. As a result, there are long queues in front of some mobile food trucks with good taste. The local politicians who witnessed all this smiled at the continued expansion of the exhibition scale this year. As a non-profit event, Jinsao Comic Exhibition does not have the strong support of the local government. It provides venues, decoration, and maintenance. If there is no actual value, who would have such motivation? Don't underestimate the driving role of such a platform. During the 2009 Jinsao Comic Exhibition, the total consumption indirectly affected exceeded 300 million, and most of it belonged to third-party service industries, so the direct impact was even more considerable. You know, since the advent of the internet era, the Golden State Comic Con has not only topped other similar events in terms of media exposure, but also, due to its 4-day duration, the breadth and density of information bombardment have exceeded most of the top leisure and cultural events in the United States. It can even be said that every participant has spontaneously become a self-media, radiating relatives and friends through their photos, Facebook logs, etc., and can also form viral transmission with the help of the internet, greatly enhancing the city image of San Diego. If you must say, the comic exhibition itself is a postcard for San Diego to shape its popularity and favorability. In the era of eyeball economy, popularity means business. The development of the tourism industry cannot be separated from postcards that can continuously attract tourists. Of course, it is also this attitude of intentional development that allows tourists to eat, drink, play and sightsee every day during the Golden State Comic Con. In the exhibition area, from time to time, volunteers friendly answer questions and solve doubts for the exhibitors. Most of these people who maintain order are young men and women in their 20s. What they need to do on a daily basis is to tell the distribution of the exhibition area, such as where the nearest toilet is, where the DC exhibition area is, and other trivial matters. Please do not crowd, or cut in line at will, and do not damage the exhibits at will. They repeated the reminder over and over again, and the visitors walked through the venue alone or in groups, which was very lively. People were either happy about the third concept poster of Transformers and some plot content revealed, or cheered for the testing progress announced by a certain game manufacturer, or emptied their wallets for the Gundam series launched by LEGO. Here, they can hear more, and more detailed news, and appreciate the most cutting-edge methods of manufacturers. In such a style, it is easy to maintain curiosity. Especially in the DC exhibition area, Warner released the first official trailer of Green Lantern with a big hand, and even many fine props restored in the comics. It is even said that the person in charge also talked about the preparations for the third part of Batman, and displayed the classic Batman suit and Joker mask. DC fans were so excited. Although they had seen some progress of DC projects in newspapers, and trailers were not uncommon, those who often watched movies knew that the trailers were cut, which meant that the official release would not be too far away. Olsen, standing in the crowd, was also a little excited, not for the green light project, but for Nolan's Batman. He did not watch the first Batman Begins at first, but later The Dark Knight was too popular and the topic was too high, so he was attracted to the theater. But since then, he has become a fan of Nolan's director. Not only did he buy the DVDs of all Nolan's theater movies, but he also fell in love with this talented director. At this moment, he heard in person that Warner said that the director of Batman 3 would not be changed, and it was very likely to start shooting next year. He couldn't help but look forward to it, thinking of the classic The Dark Knight that he had watched repeatedly. Olsen's heart was still quite uneasy. With such emotions, he visited the DC exhibition area very carefully. Compared with other manufacturers who are trying to grab traffic by various means, Marvel's exhibition area seems to be much more ordinary. There are no shocking new plans released, nor are there any new products that are very impressive. Even though there are several 1-to-1 ratio character models standing in the exhibition hall, it is also an eye-catching routine that many big manufacturers are tired of playing. Apart from getting passing fans to stop and take a few photos, there are no extra actions. For 3 consecutive days, tourists gradually digested one cutting-edge news after another, and when they were satisfied, Marvel began to make big moves. Lyman's idea for doing this is very simple: to minimize boring comparisons to the greatest extent, and to make a move, he must become the most prominent among many manufacturers. The third day of the exhibition, which was the afternoon of July 10th, in the Marvel exhibition area, which had not changed its layout for several days, a notice suddenly appeared on the big screen: from Iron Man to Captain America, the Marvel MCU, which read Fiend's Marvel Comics, is not following the usual path. There was basically not much useful information recorded on the notice, but such an action quickly created a sense of mystery. Apart from anything else, tourists are very fond of this, and many people came to see something new that day. Marvel fans were also very excited, and after a large number of spreads, this news immediately became a hot post on Facebook with related clicks and views. Everyone wanted to know what the so-called redefinition meant, but the host on the stage just repeatedly explained that it would not be announced until 10 AM tomorrow. From a planning point of view, Lyman and others also intended to foment the news more and create a greater impact. When everything was ready, Lyman, who received good feedback, stood in front of the French window of the hotel bedroom, with the lights outside reflected in his eyes. Chapter 986. Don't go into a vicious circle. Marvel's exhibition area is located in the east area of the large double-layer surround structure venue. It was just dawn when Lyman and Marvel Entertainment executives arrived here. Cook, the on-site manager who had been up all night, also came to greet them with red eyes. The company's senior management took this exhibition very seriously and invited many local media people in advance. The whole process was to be published in newspapers, and no one dared to be careless. Brand marketing director David Mazzo personally took charge and coordinated the process with Lyman and Joseph a week in advance. The efforts of dozens or hundreds of people depended on today's execution. At 7 AM, Lyman was still in the backstage of the exhibition area, memorizing the pictures and texts on the PPT several times. At 8 AM, tourists came into the exhibition hall one after another. Because of yesterday's mysterious topic, the number of people standing in front of the Marvel exhibition area was the largest. Judging from their age, most of them were young people, which was exactly the age group Marvel had been striving for. How many reporters have you invited? More than 30 media outlets. If too many people come, they will occupy the originally designated audience area. This scale is very good. Yes, it's very thoughtful. Lyman nodded and looked at the oval platform. A huge white curtain had been put up. Just at this time, Assistant Mays took out a small remote control for turning pages from his pocket and handed it to him. Are Donnie and the others here? Lyman took it and asked. They are here. When the time comes, they will warm up the audience first and give a surprise to the waiting fans. Okay, you will go over there and wait for orders. Pay attention to the instructions at any time. After Mays left, Kevin came over again. We promote MCU in advance, aren't we afraid that our neighbors will learn from us? Have you ever heard the saying, those who learn from me will live, those who imitate me will die? Although DC and Marvel both started out as superhero comics, they are in different directions. If DC only knows how to follow the routine, they will lose even more miserably. Lyman seemed to have thought of something and said with a smile, this way, it seems to be more topical. But after Warner's experience with Superman and Watchmen, it is no longer so enthusiastic about DC. So, we have to let them see that there is still a lot of room for development in the comic adaptation market. Lyman explained. In any case, the nature of our two companies is too similar, and we can never avoid comparisons from the audience. Besides, I think the failed investments in some superhero projects are not completely useless. At least they have a sense of existence and can give many consumers in the film market a sense of hot topics. I really hope that Marvel can expand its territory by stepping on DC. In the overseas market, DC's projects still have a better foundation than ours. Think about the fact that the overseas cumulative box office of Iron Man 2 is barely on par with that of North America, and the other projects are not much better. Look at several works of DC. Even the money-losing Superman has a higher overseas box office than North America, not to mention that the first and second Batman movies are both higher overseas than North America, and the second movie has broken the record. You can see the gap in the foundation of the two sides. The emergence of the Marvel Universe indirectly led to DC stepping up. This macro positioning and continuous confrontation production concept attracted more fans around the world to focus on Marvel. It can even be said that DC, as a competitor, sometimes coincides with Marvel's idea of expanding the superhero market. Just like there can't be only one peerless swordsman in the world, how could Zeman be so popular without Lee Gutchin? Will the superhero theme be more lively if you fight back and forth? Although the official release of the concept of MCU was scheduled at 10 AM, in fact, more and more people gathered in the Marvel exhibition hall from 8 AM. At 9 o'clock in the morning, with the host's wonderful introduction, Downey, Mark, Scarlett, Evans and other stars of the camp slowly appeared on the stage, instantly arousing the emotions of the fans in the audience. Coupled with some autographs and jokes, many people howled. No one expected that many people felt that the trip was worthwhile before the mysterious veil was unveiled. It's a pity that today's protagonist is not destined to be the idol that fans have been thinking about. When the countdown number lit up on the huge screen, Lyman quietly stood in the middle of the actors and waved his hand. There are people who know me here, and there are also people who are very unfamiliar with me. Let me introduce myself first. Lyman took the microphone and showed a friendly smile. I'm a director, the founder of Man Media, and the chairman of Marvel Entertainment. My name is Lyman Last. The enthusiasm of young people is always easy to ignite, especially many people have seen the movies he made. As early as when he appeared, the fans immediately cheered loudly in response. Seeing this scene, the reporter on the side secretly lowered his head and found an angle to take a picture. Lyman was watched by so many people, but he was not afraid of the stage. He made a few jokes to make the atmosphere more lively. Then, when the cheers from the audience died down a little, he pressed the PPT page turner. The first page that appeared was the editorial department of Marvel Comics, where many famous chapters were born. Some of you may have read the Marvel Comics magazine. It was born in 1939. It was once glorious and has never declined. Of course, I don't intend to repeat its past too much. I just think that such a good comic company should bring joy to more people, rather than meaninglessly falling into endless internal friction. Some people may also know what happened later. In 2007, I came into contact with Marvel's management. Lyman pressed the page turner, and it turned to the second page, which showed some photos recording the acquisition. At that time, everyone had thought about transformation and wanted to bring comics to the big screen and continue to show its charm in the form of sound and picture, but Marvel's revenue was not good. The consequence of the lack of stable cash flow was countless times of robbing Peter to pay Paul. When the wall was not enough, they sold the copyright. At that time, I was lucky to be loved by some people and helped by many people. Lyman flipped through the PPT, and stills and set photos of Iron Man appeared on the projector. Later, it was Iron Man. Lyman's tone rose slightly. What many people don't know is that Iron Man was established despite doubts, because the market was like this at the time, and everyone had never developed such a second-rate character that was not popular. Of course, some people ask me, without a sufficient foundation, can a work be loved by the audience? Can it produce results? Can it bring changes to Marvel? I answered, do it with your heart, and the audience is not blind. They can see the sincerity. Fortunately, Iron Man was a success. It earned $622 million in the global market, and ranked in the top 3 of the box office list that year. When he shouted the line, "I'm Iron Man," Stark, played by Downey, also became another classic image on the screen. It successfully redeemed Marvel Comics and provided a new way out for Marvel in an era when comics were gradually declining. But this is not enough. We have the best treasures in the world. Why do we have to keep repeating the path of our predecessors? Marvel Comics is a great company, and I cannot accept the vicious circle of the comic adaptation market. Shoot a few movies, the audience doesn't like it anymore, and then start over. I don't like this phenomenon. It's too simple, too monotonous, and always revolving around high walls. Here, I declare. Chapter 987 Reactions from all parties. After the comic convention ended, platforms like Yahoo Community and Facebook were the first to become popular. Especially those who have experienced it personally could not help but share their joy online. That's very well said. One cycle after another, Marvel is going to take a different path. Look forward to the Avengers. What is the op talking about? I don't understand anything. And is the Avengers a new Marvel movie? Same question. Has something happened that we don't know about? After a series of question marks below, another participant appeared to explain. This is about what happened at the Golden State Comic Con yesterday. Marvel had a big move in DC next door. It announced that the Avengers is about to start filming, and then said that from Iron Man 1, The Incredible Hulk, Thor, Captain America to Iron Man 2, this series of narrative stages are mutually influential and interdependent. Marvel has unified these stories into a chapter called Infinity Saga. WTF. The more you talk, the more confused I am. However, the Easter eggs and foreshadowing in Marvel's works are quite coherent. Is this a unified staged narrative? Marvel is amazing, and the ideas that can be put into a framework are even more amazing. Is this what is called redefinition? I just want to know who the Black Shadow who spoke to Loki at the end of Thor was, and what was the scepter he was given? The concept of the Avengers already exists in the comics, but if it is to be made into a movie, it is obvious that adjustments must be made, and the timeline is different. I hope Marvel can make it right. MCU. Nassim, a Universal executive who was originally lying on the boss chair listening to the report, sat up straight and sighed secretly. I didn't expect that Marvel also has people who understand. What a pity. What a pity. How are you going to solve the problem of two scattered roles? Okay, I know. Get out. Obviously, Nassim doesn't think Marvel's MCU plan will succeed. After all, it was Universal that first thought of related development and put it into action. Do you still remember Van Helsing that failed so badly that the leading actor Hugh Jackman didn't want to mention it? According to Universal's initial plan, the benefits of their arrangement are obvious and genius. One of the typical element of a movie is content creation, and its content production cost is quite high, which cannot be controlled in advance, and the risk is high. If you are not careful, the investment will go down the drain. You know, a movie with an investment of over 100 million may have a box office of over 1 billion, a naked profit, or it may be less than 10 million, and lose everything. The gap between them has always been carefully considered by the film company. Moreover, the success of a movie is difficult to replicate completely again. Even if it is the same series, if this one is a hit, the next one may also fail at the box office. In other words, each movie can be regarded as an independent event, and each movie has to start all over again. And how Van Helsing was done. Universal's idea is also to use a series of models to pull many screen images that were once hot and then silent with a main line, giving them new value. This is the significance of content filling. Even if Van Helsing fails at the box office due to its high cost, as long as it has a good reputation and is liked by moviegoers, it can create profits by using the classic images of Frankenstein, Wolfman, vampire, etc. If Van Helsing is a big hit at the box office, then the copyrights of other characters are more likely to be successful, because the plots of each other are interrelated and integrated, which transcends the defects of independent films, and each character can also become a vehicle for attracting fans. Then, as we all know, Van Helsing failed. There were too many characters, and the awkward plot without any rules also led to criticism from a large number of viewers. The pity that Nassim mentioned also stems from the fact that Marvel and the former Universal had the same idea of using the connection between the characters to expand the audience carrier, but they were faced with many difficulties and there would be no good results. It sounds good, and the idea is also very good, but there is no concrete results to prove it. Let's wait and see how this chess game is played. Columbia CEO Michael Linton held a document that detailed the MCU plan in his hand and said to Carlos, the general manager of the production department, however, the development of the first few projects at Marvel has been quite smooth. Even if it fails, it will not affect the value of the original characters that have been developed. Last night, Lyman called me again to discuss the return of Spider-Man. Carlos was somewhat tempted and said, they are constantly showing their intention to win him over. Perhaps we can also use Marvel's popularity to enhance Spider-Man's value. Just like what you said, President, Marvel has become a big player, and it may not be impossible for both sides to get what they need. Let's wait and see. Michael Linton refused. He still had the idea of independent development in his heart and didn't want to share a share. Besides, Spider-Man's copyright business involved a lot of complicated things. It was not only the production department and the distribution department, but also the animation department. Even the parent company Sony attached great importance to it. This decision was not easy to make. If it was not done well, his position would be unstable. If he really had to rely on external stimulation, there would definitely be other people who would object, and he would have to change. After all, Marvel was not strong enough to attract people's attention. It can only be said that it did a good job. Both Lyman and Kevin were very capable and thoughtful leaders. It was just a few lucky successes. Unlike other manufacturers, Warner CEO Kevin Tsujihara was angry and complained when he heard the news. Yes, at the press conference, although Lyman did not explain it in detail, everyone understood who the so-called comic adaptation circle referred to: shooting, freezing, and shooting again. There was no other example except DC. After all, even the part of Marvel's adaptation works that sold the copyright was after the new millennium. So when the comic convention was over, the hot search topic was the comparison of the countless versions of Batman that DC had filmed before. Warner certainly didn't want this kind of topic to be highlighted and diverted, but it was a fact and they couldn't deny it. Of course, Lyman's wording was not too biased. Although Warner was unhappy, it would not turn against each other because of a few words. Similarly, Warner did not pay too much attention to the planning of the MCU. Unproven results are all false to these big companies. They will only watch coldly, just like Avatar. Even if the Avengers were successful, it was nothing more than a meeting to analyze and then copy the market concepts. Think about it, Avatar brought the 3D plus IMAX trend to Hollywood, and it is still unknown what the Avengers can bring to Hollywood. Chapter 988, Afterglow. The release of the concept of the movie universe is not like what Kevin Feige understands, which will cause an earthquake in the production field like a meteorite falling from the sky. He is very confident and feels that it is very promising and very tempting, but most studios just put it aside and don't pay much attention to it. In fact, Hollywood has always had some very traditional production thinking, which can even be said to be contradictory. It is willing to try innovation, but also follows the market's concerns and conservatism. Just like the failure of Cutthroat Island, all production companies directly removed the pirate scripts. Until Disney launched the alternative pirate theme Pirates of the Caribbean to promote its own park supporting facilities, it was successful. Everyone felt that it was not replicable and still denied the pirate drama. The innovative part is that their support for specific themes has never stopped. Whether it is Warner or some small film companies, they have produced a lot of independent works. The 5 major subsidiary labels such as Searchlight and Focus have always been digging for fresh blood in this area, so that a large number of in-depth and well-received art films can emerge every year to fill the market. From a split point of view, Hollywood is now increasingly polarized. That is, the investment amount of blockbuster films is getting higher and higher, and they are becoming more and more cautious. The investment in independent works is getting more and more, and it is the middle part that is becoming more and more marginalized. Of course, Lyman is really experiencing this period of change and knows the reason why the studios choose this way. After all, from the perspective of the ratio of investment risk to return rate, although blockbusters require a lot of funds and have high risks, once they make a profit, they will reap a lot of rewards. Independent works have low production budgets and low risks, and it doesn't matter if they fail, and they don't hurt at all. Once a film and television classic is discovered, it is a double gain of fame and fortune. While the copyright is valuable, the brand image becomes more three-dimensional. Movie fans have always paid for such high-quality works. Even 10 or 20 years later, they will not be outdated. In other words, they'll bear financial risks. A budget project of 60 million is not as good as a budget of 100 million. To put it bluntly, in terms of creating value and cost effectiveness, the middle part of the budget is neither up nor down, which seems very uneconomical. Furthermore, the advantage of watching from the sidelines is that they can wait for Marvel to find a feasible path before learning from it. Fantasy themes are popular, and everyone's production focuses on fantasy. If the movie universe can achieve results, it is nothing more than a reskin imitation, whether it can grasp the essence or not. After all, these big companies are still very cunning. Since Marvel has jumped out, there is nothing wrong with waiting and watching for a while. In this way, the high profile opening is indeed high profile, but it is only high profile among movie fans, which can bring different attention to Avengers. When all the major portals published reports on the Golden State Comic Con, the pleasant surprise was that the sales of Marvel peripherals were boosted. A portion of them were sold more than usual, making a little money. Boss, do you have any instructions? The next afternoon, in the office of the Firefly building, Lemon called his assistant Mace. Well, there are 3 small things you need to take care of. First, Joseph's small adjustments to the administrative department and personnel promotions. I have read them, and agree with them all. Second, let Lyman spread the news that the Avengers is looking for a distributor. Third, in terms of brand implantation, there are some plans that I don't agree with. You can ask David to communicate more with the sponsors. If it doesn't work, abandon the sponsorship plans that are too abrupt. There is no need to drag down the filming of the entire project and affect the audience's perception for such a small amount of money. Okay, boss. Mace wrote it down quickly. By the way, boss, you just mentioned the sponsorship. Audi is planning to book an internal interview on the Iron Man series. Do you want to come forward? After all, you are the director of the first one. Forget it, let Kevin come forward. He is the producer of the Marvel series of projects. Give him more exposure. I already have too much. The assistant said and after repeatedly verifying the arrangements of some things, he talked about the schedule. From last night to now, I have received calls from several brokerage companies. They all want to talk to you. In addition, the crew needs a trial costume and wants you to see the effect. Then, you promised before that, if a project is profitable at the box office, the relevant production staff and distributors will be rewarded. President Lyman has reported the relevant plan, and the finance department needs your signature. Let's take it one by one. Why did the people from the brokerage company come to me? Lemon was puzzled. Boss, Avengers also needs a group of supporting roles with some roles, waitresses in the cafe, clerks in SHIELD, etc. And our project is very popular and requires a lot of behind the scenes personnel. They all want to pack up the remaining work and get involved. Well, Lemon was busy and confused for a while. For the brokerage company, it would be strange if they didn't get involved in this matter. They spared no effort to generate income and performance. On second thought, they are so active, isn't it because Marvel is becoming more and more powerful in the field of film production, and everyone wants to maintain the relationship and cling to the thighs? As mentioned earlier, Hollywood's industrial model can effectively reduce the operating expenses of the studio when there are no projects on weekdays. After all, the permanent staff of a film company's production department will not exceed 100 at most, and most of them are producers and department managers, rather than the lowest level of art, macup, props or interns who have just entered the industry. But it just so happens that a first-line project requires a lot of manpower from research to start up. It is common to employ more than 2,000 behind-the-scenes staff at its peak. Without the support of the union and the agency, it is impossible to find so many suitable people to fill the positions. Under the package system, as long as the agency receives this kind of work, there is a lot of room for operation and a stable budget flow. Of course, Lemon is a CAA level director, holding resources in his hands and trying to avoid CAA's dominance in his projects. So after these people came to the door, they did not dare to make sky-high prices and basically came up with very sincere package plans. While Lemon was busy with some trivial matters during the preparation of the Avengers project, Nolan carefully tied his tie and got on the bus to the Chinese theater. After 7 months, $160 million was spent, and $55 million was thrown into the pre-promotion and publicity. Inception is finally going to meet movie fans. On July 13th, the few advance tickets released were sold out in an instant. People walked out of their homes with great expectations, wanting to witness this brain-burning science fiction that was promoted as multiple dreams. In short, whether it can set the pace and lead the trend depends on the effect of the first night. Chapter 989 Dream, Part 1. New York, a luxury cinema near Grand Central Station. The number 2 theater with a normal screen was packed with audiences. After Avatar, every blockbuster movie would be converted into a 3D copy in post-production. However, Inception did the opposite and did not occupy the IMAX theater. The reason for this is that CG lenses are not the mainstream lens of the movie. Soon, the lights dimmed and the screen lit up. Leo. As soon as the movie started, there was some commotion in the audience. The screams of several female fans slightly annoyed some audience members who just wanted to enjoy a movie. On the screen, Leo, wearing a grey jacket, fell on the beach, at a loss. Then the picture stretched forward, and the man seemed to see a pair of children playing on the beach in a trance. Turning his head, the man fainted. The camera turned to the back, and a gun-wielding guard came over and took the fainted man to a Japanese-style house not far away. After the man was carried in, an old man with wrinkles on his face sat on the seat. The old man was very confused and asked the man if he was here to kill him. He also said that he knew a man who also carried a spinning top many years ago. The man looked at the old man. The camera suddenly turned. It was still the Japanese-style room, but the two had changed their clothes. The old man became a middle-aged man and sat in a seat. Leo, with a big back hair, sat opposite his friend and talked to the middle-aged man as if he was an investment bank manager who came to sell business. Wow. Such a short seamless scene change shocked the audience. It felt very high-end for some reason, but still didn't know what Nolan wanted to express. It's just that the identities of the two people changed from a tense confrontation to the A and B parties selling business in an instant. The gap is so big, but there is no sense of disobedience, which is really amazing. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Cobb, and I'm a senior dreamer. Leo, also known as Cobb, had a smile on his face and a confident tone. The other protagonist of the incident, the middle-aged man who was cutting steak and enjoying the food while listening to Cobb's speech, was the head of the world's second largest energy company, a super rich Japanese tycoon. Cobb and his friends were still showing off their skills, selling the dream security insurance plan to the wealthy Sato, and threatened that there must be people like me in the world who would come to your dreams to steal secrets. If you hire me, I can guarantee that you will have no worries in this regard, but the prerequisite is that you have to trust me 100%. Cobb was a little excited as he spoke. He stood up from his seat and swaggered towards Sato. Listen, if you hire me to help you, you have to be open with me. I have to know your thoughts better than your wife, your consultant, and all your close people. For example, this is a dream, and in the dream there is a secret safe of yours. I must know what is in the safe. This is honesty. But perhaps because he had too much wealth, Sato had seen too many people who shamelessly wanted to get money from him. He wiped his mouth with a napkin, ignored him, said goodbye, and turned to attend the banquet. The Japanese did not believe in any dream theory at all. Cobb's companion Arthur saw this scene and sighed that we were exposed. Just when Arthur's words seemed to prove that the two were liars, the ground shook. Cobb looked at the time on his watch. The camera turned again, and the scene became a small apartment. It was still the same three people, but the wealthy Sato, who was inviolable and escorted by security personnel just now, was pinned to the ground by Cobb and Arthur. There was a riot outside the window, but Cobb revealed his cards to Sato in the house. He said that he was commissioned by his competitor to steal the secrets in his dreams. However, when Cobb said this, the camera was corresponding to a speeding train. Cobb, Arthur and others were all asleep in their seats. A little boy looked at the time and put headphones on Arthur's head. The singing of French singer Piaf sounded synchronously. Incredibly, the three people in the apartment also heard this song, and Arthur was a little anxious after hearing it. He walked out of the window and found that the rioting crowd was rushing towards them. It was really too late. Arthur made a gesture, and Cobb took a look. He was too soft to use force, and threw Sato to the ground, shouting, "Tell me what you know." Ha 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 ha. Sato was like a madman, still laughing after being beaten. The more violent and rampant Cobb was, the more unscrupulous Sato's cheerful laughter became. As a rich man, isn't he afraid of his enemies messing with him? Money is more important than life. The audience was wondering. Sato muttered in his sleep, "You know, I always hated this carpet. It's faded and worn, but it's a wool blanket after all. But now, I'm touching a polyester blanket." Arthur frowned. "That is to say, I'm not lying on the floor of my own apartment, Mr. Cobb. I'm still in a dream." Whoosh. On the train, several people, including Cobb and Arthur, all woke up, and the operation failed. It was not until this time that the audience realized what the so-called dream stealing meant. Joey, a film critic sitting in the audience, was like this. When he fully recalled the seamless transformation of these scenes, he deeply felt that Nolan's construction was clever, layer after layer of dreams, time and time again to gain trust, multiple nesting dolls. No matter how the scenes were divided, the purpose was only to deepen Sato's feeling that what happened in reality was reality. Perhaps it is precisely because it is difficult to make people believe that the content of the dream is real that Cobb first sold the so-called dream insurance to obtain business information, and was ridiculed by Sato, and then said that he was hired by his competitor, reasonably kidnapped Sato, and changed the routine to interrogate business secrets. If it were not for the flaws in the final details, Sato would react that it was fake, and under the threat of life, it might have really worked. Such a strong sense of drama can only be said to be worthy of Nolan. Even the editing and camera switching are full of traps. However, Joey's praise is only because he has a strong foundation of association and can understand it. But these few nesting dolls of dreams made the audience noisy. What is this? Just now I was in the apartment, and now I'm on the train. What kind of dream is this? There is no explanation. Oh my god, what does this beginning want to express? Don't scream if you don't understand. WTF. I just watch a movie, and I have to analyze the plot myself? Isn't this the director's job? To be honest, the main reason for the failure of Tenet is that it sets a higher viewing threshold than Inception. The theater was a bit noisy, and in a blink of an eye, several impatient people had already left. This film, like Memento, is a bit unfriendly to the audience, who just want to be entertained. This can also be regarded as a label of Nolan. As I said, grasp the right degree. The general public never likes highbrow music, but it can't be without highbrow music. It is completely popular. Chapter 990 Dream, Part 2. The mission failed. Cobb and his companions were afraid of giving an explanation to the party that hired them, so they decided to run away. As a result, because the dream builder was arrested and betrayed the whereabouts of several people, Sato found them. "Mr. Cobb, you are really amazing." Sato's words full of praise sounded, without a trace of anger at being deceived. "Please sit down." Cobb looked at the security guards on guard around him, and the guns they had already raised in their hands, so he had to sit down obediently, but he didn't expect that Sato's purpose was also to hire them. "What do you want us to do?" Cobb was at the mercy of others, so he naturally changed his goal. "Implant dreams." Sato looked at the two of them. "Is it possible?" "Of course not." Cobb was still thinking, and Arthur had already refuted. "Since you can enter a person's dream to lure and steal his thoughts, why can't you implant an idea in him in return?" Sato was puzzled. "Okay." Arthur had to explain their work. "Now I'm going to implant an idea in you. I say, don't think about the elephant. What will you think of subconsciously?" "The elephant. Look, this is not actually your idea, and you know that this is what I instilled in you." A person's brain can always trace the source of an idea, even if it is hidden very deeply, but there is always a basis. This is the principle of our actions. We never create a false source of ideas. Arthur was talking, and Cobb interrupted and said, "Not necessarily, there is still a way." After that, after investigating in advance, and knowing that Cobb could not enter the country because of suspected murder of his ex-wife Mel, Sato gave Cobb an offer that he could not refuse. As long as this trip was successful, he could help him return to his children. This temptation, for Cobb, who was suffering from the pain of missing his children, he was willing to give it a try. The two sides agreed, and Sato also told Cobb that the target of his dream implant was Robert Fisher, the son of the head of the world's largest energy group. Robert's father is now terminally ill and will not live for a few days, and Robert is the only heir. From another perspective, it is also because the energy group owned by Sato has always been the second in the market. If Cobb can make Robert have the idea of disbanding the group and put it into action, Sato can jump up and become the boss of the energy market. The difficulty of completing this task is obviously not low, so Cobb and Arthur began to recruit suitable team members. After a period of preparation, Cobb first founded Lyman, who was responsible for building dreams at his father-in-law's place in Paris. Dream building is to turn the false into the reality in the dream, but because people's thoughts are uncontrollable, the subconscious mapping often leads to emergencies. Once Cobb taught Adeline to be familiar with the dream world, Cobb's wife Mel jumped out to make trouble and stabbed Adeline to death with a knife, which scared the girl. This kind of dream death feels bad. Those who have had dreams know that if you encounter a scene of jumping off a cliff or a tall building in a dream, the feeling of weightlessness can stimulate your heart to beat straight. This is the case with Adeline. After she was awakened, she was scared and quickly quit. However, after trying the feeling of controlling dreams like God, the temptation was too great, and the girl came back unwillingly. But when she asked about the woman who suddenly attacked and hurt people, Cobb was very secretive about Mel's existence. Cobb didn't want to explain, but Arthur talked to Adini about totems. He said that people in their line of work often can't distinguish between dreams and reality, which is actually a very dangerous thing. After all, if you die in a dream, you won't really die. Instead, you can get out of the dream with the stimulation of death. But if you die in reality, you will definitely be gone. So in order to ensure the judgment of such things, each of them will choose a small object to carry with them. This small object is the totem that anchors the spiritual world. Arthur showed Adni his totem, a special little dice, and then said that Cobb's totem was a small spinning top. When the spinning top kept spinning, it was a dream, and when the spinning top stopped, it was reality. Later, Cobb and others found Tom Hardy, the future actor of Venom. Eames' ability was to disguise others in dreams and obtain information about the target. Finally, a pharmacist joined the team to help them enter deep dreams. In the past, Cobb's dream theft was to deceive ideas from the inside out. Generally, creating 2 layers of dreams was enough to cope with it. This mission was difficult. It was to implant ideas, so it was necessary to enter the 3rd layer of dreams. Interestingly, when Cobb went to find the pharmacist, he saw that many customers were always asking for dreams and were unwilling to face reality. This also extended to the core of Nolan's work, that is, what is the essence of reality? For Nolan, from Memento to Inception, one thing was gradually emphasized: as long as people believe in what they want to believe, even if it is a dream, it is real. However, when the team was formed, the big boss Sato asked to go there to personally verify whether their implantation was successful. The film is only about 1/3 of the way through, but it gives a lot of information. Nolan's movies are like this. The rhythm is not dragged out, and the speed of advancing the plot is also very fast, but it makes people feel that the direction of the story is revealed layer by layer, and there is a continuous temptation to explore the secret of the truth. In this way, it is not surprising why Nolan has so many fans. In most cases, he is a very good director who can combine business and art. He can also provide entertainment, adrenaline, and depth without monotony. He can also do it, always grasp the audience's attention, and give them an unexpected viewing experience. Afterwards, everyone investigated their mission target Robert Fisher in detail, and gave a character portrait. Freud once said, most of a person's behavior and personality can be traced back to childhood experiences, and Robert was a child who lacked fatherly love since he was a child. His father was always busy and never came home. So when he grew up and faced his father, who was still a father lying in bed, Robert's feelings were very complicated, with a little admiration, alienation, and some sadness. In this regard, the dream-stealing team led by Cobb intends to start from this point and make him believe that his father wants him to have his own life, not to repeat his old ways, so that Robert may be willing to dissolve the energy group, because he himself does not need that position. In other words, Cobb and others want to do is to repeatedly hypnotize Robert to have a positive emotion about dissolving the energy group, because positive emotions will make people have great motivation for the whole thing after waking up. The plan has been decided, and the dream stealing begins. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 991, Dream Planting, Part 1. As the plot continues, the group is sent to the luxury cabin of the plane where Robert is traveling. In order to facilitate the operation, after the spies arranged to investigate Robert's itinerary, Sato bought the airline in advance and replaced it with his own flight attendants. Although the flight time is only a few hours, the concept of time is blurred because they are in a dream, which is enough for them to guide Robert's conscious thoughts. With the help of money, the staff on the plane are all Sato's people, and Robert doesn't know that someone is targeting him. He doesn't have a strong defensive mentality, so the plan is carried out very smoothly. Robert was knocked unconscious, and Cobb and others injected strong tranquilizers and entered Robert's dream world together. It's great to have money. The rich are inhumane. This progress is really buying an airline to get closer to the target. Who doesn't like such a party, eh? Although it is a joke, the audience in the advance show walked into the theater completely for the stars from the beginning, and now they are still sitting firmly, seriously appreciating a somewhat brain-burning work, which must be the story itself. When the highlight began, a tense atmosphere of fighting wits and courage in a sealed environment suddenly rose. Just as Cobb said, the dream world is full of chance and uncertainty, and any unexpected situation is enough to lead to failure. The charm of excellent actors is also fully displayed in this group play of 7 people. Leo is a mysterious and melancholy person, making people want to dispel the fog on him. Ledger is a serious action person, and Arthur's existence is to complement Cobb. Tom Hardy is cunning, good at disguise, and has a kind of pride and high IQ in his bones. Such a team, plus 2 acting female protagonists, such a collision, how can it not attract the audience? The first layer of the dream is in a city with heavy rain. Robert stood on the roadside in the rain and waved a yellow taxi. In the taxi sat Cobb, Sato, and Arthur. Cobb originally planned to take Robert to the preset location directly, but a group of armed men with live ammunition rushed out from both sides of the street and shot at the taxi. When Cobb finally got rid of the unexpected visitors, Sato was shot in the shooting and was seriously injured. Seeing the pain of the rich man, Eames, who was squatting at the preset location, suggested killing Sato and making him wake up in reality, which was better than suffering in the dream. He took out a gun, but was held down by Cobb. This won't wake him up. What? Eames was puzzled. We are in Robert's dream, and we can get out if we die. It won't work. This won't work. Cobb emphasized repeatedly. The pharmacist beside him had to tell the truth after hearing it. In order to build the 3-layer dream, we used a lot of sedatives. What will happen if you die? Fall into the lost zone. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? What is the lost zone? Adine asked. The original dream. Arthur said. What's in it? Adine asked. There is only endless primitive subconsciousness, unless someone has been there and left something there. Here, only Cobb has been there. Everyone looked at Cobb, and the atmosphere was anxious. Good, great concealment. Eames was so angry that he calmed down. We are now trapped in this guy's dream, fighting for our lives with his subconscious mind that has been trained by consciousness. If we die accidentally, we will fall into the damn lost realm, waiting for the tranquilizer to wear off, or our brains to become a pot of paste and never wake up again. This is your grasp, right? The lost realm is not terrible, where death can return to the real world, but the terrible thing is that, after falling into the lost realm, you will forget a lot of things, and can't remember, that death is the key to liberation. This is like the setting of a vegetative person, with thoughts, but only thoughts. At this point, no matter how much you complain, it will be useless. Everyone just wants to complete the task, wake up the target of the task, and exclude outsiders like them. When it came to the stage of interrogating the rich second-generation Robert, Eames used his camouflage ability to pretend to be Browning, a confidant of Robert's father, and kept asking him questions. This was the first link in Cobb and others' serial plan, which was to let Robert subconsciously know that his father left him a safe with a written will in it. Eames used the acquaintances in his memory to repeatedly emphasize that Robert's father loved him, but was not good at expressing it. In this way, as long as Robert believed in the will, he could forge a polished will later. Several people cooperated and used all kinds of tricks until Robert's mapping armed forces came over. Everyone quickly moved their positions and got in a car. Except for the pharmacist, they fell asleep again and entered the second level of dream. In a hotel with exquisite decoration, Robert was being chatted up by a beautiful girl. When the girl left, she left a string of numbers that he was very familiar with, 528 to 491. It was a 6-digit code that Robert had said in the first dream. This made Robert feel very strange and subconsciously strengthened his trust in the story made up by Cobb and others. Then, Cobb appeared and continued to deceive people. Because of the information obtained from the first level of torture, he easily established a persona of "your father asked me to protect you" for himself. The two went to a room, and Cobb made Robert unconscious again, but just when he wanted to enter the third level of dream, the map defense personnel arrived, and they had to leave Arthur to fight with them. The third level of dream was on a snowy mountain. The deeper the dream, the more monotonous the scene transformed by the subconscious mind is. In the audience, a film critic chatted with his companion and wrote something in his notebook. It should be set up like this. The first floor is a bustling city, the second floor is a lively hotel, and the third floor is directly a deserted snow-capped mountain. The environment atmosphere is indeed reduced in sequence. As the plot came to an end, the entire theater fell into an increasingly quiet state, and the audience was watching the dream planting action to the designated, preset point with great interest. To be honest, after experiencing the somewhat obscure multiple dream theory at the beginning, as long as you can accept it and get familiar with it later, the movie is actually always immersed in an interesting atmosphere. The tense and exciting dream stealing is combined with a group of actors with rich performance experience and fast and sharp editing, just like watching a drama legend. Like the lost domain theory at the beginning of the dream, the sudden seriousness and solemnity are also a hint on the intersection of substitution. The audience is praying that there will be no more accidents. If you think so, it means that the viewing mind is already following the plot, which is precisely the charm of the movie. Chapter 992, Dream Planting, Part 2. For Robert, careful induction has made him believe that the castle in the snowy mountains contains the will given to him by his father. Then in the process of attacking the castle, the three dreams were exquisitely narrated by Nolan in the form of parallel montage. The pharmacist was racing in the city to avoid the pursuers. Arthur was fighting hand to hand with the defenders in the hotel. The rest of Cobb and others were in a gunfight in the snowy mountains. After dealing with the external guards, Robert entered the castle. When he was looking for the will with joy, only the final awakening was left. According to the plan discussed by Cobb before, if everyone wants to escape safely from the three layers of dreams, they need to achieve synchronization kick. On the screen, the pharmacist will drive the bus through the guardrail and fall into the sea. The falling process takes 2 to 3 seconds. At the same time, Arthur set a time bomb in the hotel, which takes 1 minute. On the third layer, Robert got the will and then blew up the castle, which took about 20 minutes, because the time flow rate of each lower layer of dreams is roughly 20 times. As long as it is calculated well, synchronization can be achieved. Hiss. The audience was shocked by this scene. No one thought it could be played like this. It can be said that this segment is equivalent to nesting 3 layers of final rescue, creating a huge suspense and completely mobilizing the audience's emotions. The critics and the audience who understood it were all climaxing, but some still didn't quite understand and quietly asked, "What does synchronized kick mean? Aren't they going to wake Robert up?" But deep level dream death will only wake up in the previous dream. Only by achieving synchronized stimulation can you escape in an instant. Don't they say that you will fall into the lost domain when you die? Robert is the master of the dream. He won't die if he dies, but others will die. Oh, I understand. The confused audience was no longer confused and was also convinced by Nolan's design. As a result, just when Robert was about to get the will in the safe, Cobb's subconscious reflection, his ex-wife Mel, suddenly appeared and shot Sato, who was suffering from a gunshot wound. The employer was the first to be eliminated. Immediately afterwards, Mel shot Robert again, causing him to faint. Action target out. Just like that, the appearance of Mel completely unbalanced the situation, and the sharp murderous intention that was pressing step by step affected the whole scene. At this point, the context became clearer and Cobb fell into despair. But Aidney analyzed the time and proposed to enter the lost territory to regain Robert's consciousness. Then came the biggest reversal of the whole film, about the reason for Mel's existence. Before that, Cobb lied. In his unilateral explanation, Mel, that is, his wife, was addicted to dreams and unwilling to face reality. She jumped off the building and pretended to be murdered because of depression. But what was the result? Cobb is a dream stealer. After marrying his wife, he has been exploring the various possibilities of dreams and the lost territory. The two have lived and run there for more than 50 years. When Aidney and Cobb entered, everything was so familiar, and many buildings were designed by Cobb himself. In that house, Mel stroked Cobb's face. One looked up and looked straight, and the other slightly avoided. Cobb is guilty. He is not a victim at all in his wife's suicide. Because he stayed in the lost zone for too long, Cobb was tired and wanted to return to the real world, but his wife was immersed in the illusion of the two-person world and did not want to wake up. Helplessly, Cobb had to implant the idea of the world you are in is not real into Mel's heart and induced her to commit suicide by lying on the railway tracks with him. This scene has become Cobb's unforgettable memory, which is why Cobb can always reflect his wife Mel after entering a dream. Moreover, the side effects of dream implantation were completely exposed afterwards. Mel began to become a little neurotic. The idea of the world you are in is not real made her gradually unable to distinguish between illusion and reality. She began to suspect that the real world was also a dream and tried every means to persuade Cobb to commit suicide with him and go back to the past. The camera followed Mel. Her expression was not as stiff and cold as before. Her eyes were filled with love, sadness, and unprecedented determination. She was a poor woman, and Cobb paid the price for his self-confidence and arrogance. In the end, Cobb agreed to stay, but Adeline shot Mel and persuaded Cobb to leave. Cobb shook his head and decided to find Sato's consciousness. Seeing that time was running out, Adeline had to jump off the building with Robert and return to the third level of dreams. There, Robert, who had awakened, pressed the 6-digit password, opened the door of the secret room, and saw his father lying on the hospital bed. The plan was back on track. After getting the will, knowing that his father wanted him to go his own way, Robert was moved to tears and held his father's hand. Eames saw this scene and knew that the mission was successful. He calculated the time and pressed the controller. In an instant, the castle was blown up, the hotel room was blown up, and the bus just fell into the sea. Under the influence of the synchronized kick, everyone escaped from the dream, but there were still two people who did not come back. One was Sato, who was shot and killed by Mel in the third level of dreams, and fell into the lost realm. The other was Cobb, who took the initiative to stay, and then drowned on the first level, and fell into the lost realm. The scene changes. Cobb faints in front of the beach and is carried away by the guards. Everything corresponds to each other again. At the same time, Sato, who has spent countless years in the lost zone, is already an old man. It is still the castle, but the snow-capped mountains are gone, leaving only the sea and mountains after melting. Ironically, even though Sato has forgotten a lot of things, after seeing the spinning top, he still asks Cobb if he is here to kill him, because when Cobb was commissioned to enter Sato's dream, he beat him severely. Light and shadow and pause, the two people across the long table, seem to have returned to the atmosphere when they first met. It's just that Cobb was selling dream insurance door to door and preparing to plant grass. Now he is still a guard with a gun on alert. Cobb has just woken up from the sea and is in a very embarrassed situation, but he is here to save and wake up Sato. The old man looked at him, and he also looked at the old man. The existence of the spinning top soon let Cobb know that he was in a dream. Go back, we don't belong here. The old man trembled, as if he understood something. A gunshot. Cobb woke up on the plane, and after a second or two, Sato opened his eyes in confusion. He sat up straight, looked at the time, and was very satisfied. After Party A was satisfied, Sato also kept his promise and used his money power to make a phone call to make the US police cancel the arrest warrant for Cobb. It was over. The audience breathed a sigh of relief. Robert was implanted with the idea, and he would subtly implement the plan. to dissolve the energy group in the future. Cobb also returned to his home in the United States and hugged his 2 children. Everyone was happy. His father-in-law walked in happily, leaving only the gyroscope on the table spinning. Click, the screen went black. Chapter 993, The Wizard's Apprentice. In the theater, the audience was already stunned. That spinning top. Is it still a dream? After paying so much, can Cobb still not go back? Why do I feel that the spinning top has the intention to stop? It has been a little unbalanced just now. Because of a blank shot, the audience talked a lot, and some people even pulled their hair and doubted their lives. It can be said that the scene that should have a perfect ending after the climax raised the suspense to the maximum. The understatement shows a skill. Until the subtitles reappeared on the big screen and the list of actors slowly rose, the film critic Joe I also sat quietly in his seat, his thoughts tangled together, and he also repeatedly thought about the deep meaning of this movie. Nolan. He sighed in a low voice. In any case, Inception is an extremely excellent movie that can withstand careful appreciation. Great. This is his first time to get involved in propositional science fiction, right? Really amazing. Yeah. The companion stood up and agreed with satisfaction. The setting of multiple dreams is amazing enough, and the synchronous narrative of the parallel montage is even more amazing. Nolan's directorial talent is unquestionable, just like the label boss Lyman he collaborated with. By the way, what do you think of the blank space at the end? It doesn't affect anything. Whether it is a dream or reality, it is a good ending. I can only say that it sublimates the theme of dreams. Although the traces are a bit heavy, the effect is not bad, which is a plus. Both of you. The 2 walked out of the theater, and a young white guy immediately approached. Can you delay for a while? Just a moment. Joe I looked at the young man taking out a questionnaire from his bag and took it without any unfamiliarity. It just so happened that he had a very good impression of this movie and didn't mind spending a little more time on it. He filled in some basic information about himself, such as age, gender, etc., with ease, and then gave an A+ in the rating column without hesitation. Are you from Sony? Joe I asked casually, after filling in the form. No, we are a third-party survey company, but we can be considered as one. They hired us together with Blue Butterfly. You collected so many questionnaires. Is the evaluation information sufficient? Is the evaluation of Inception high? The young man just took Joe I's questionnaire and smiled when he heard this question. There are many people who give A+ like you, but there are always dissatisfied people. There were audiences who left the movie halfway through. How could that be? Joe I was too focused on watching the movie and didn't pay attention to these things at all. They all muttered that the movie had too many twists and turns, and it was uncomfortable to watch. This kind of people are suitable for watching stupid movies. Joe I complained and left. The critics should be on our side this time. Inception is very much in line with their tastes. They have always advocated that movies should be nutritious, rather than assembly line style old-fashioned commercial entertainment. In addition, Columbia is also spending effort on public relations with some well-known film critics to let them speak for us. The evaluation will definitely not be low, but I'm a little worried that the threshold of this movie is a bit high. I heard from my subordinates that there were audiences who couldn't watch it at all in the advanced screening. At the cocktail party, Lyman held a glass of champagne while dealing with the guests coming and going. He reported the screening of Inception in a somewhat nagging manner, but Lemon didn't listen seriously. The basic audience of Inception is different from that of Marvel's project. The former cannot be accepted without some patience and movie watching experience. The more inexperienced teenagers or vulgar people are, the less likely they will buy it. He knew it from the beginning. Moreover, the so-called viewing threshold is actually not that high. Putting aside those settings, just simply treating it as a crime film or a gun battle film between men, you can watch it. Inception is not lacking in commercial element, so there is nothing to worry about. What about the publicity? We will invest another $9 million next week, and Columbia has also prepared some corresponding publicity and distribution resources. It can be said that in the next few weeks, their distribution focus will be on our film, and then they will gradually shift their focus to other new films. What about the new films in the same period? Haha, boss, Cage may be in trouble. Speaking of this, Lyman's concerns about Inception disappeared completely, and he was a little happy. The Sorcerer's Apprentice he starred in was simply a disaster. It is said that some theater representatives were not optimistic about the internal preview held after the film was edited, and then a small number of previews were released, and the positive reputation was not maintained. If Highmore Films had not signed a screening contract with Disney first, they would not even be able to get 3,500 theaters in the first week. My intuition tells me that this movie is doomed, unless everyone is wrong again, but this situation is rare. Although Hollywood has one or two unexpected miracle dark horses every year, most industry insiders' predictions are accurate, and if it weren't for the pessimism, The Sorcerer's Apprentice wouldn't be so cautious. Disney has no confidence in promoting it, and it's more like a perfunctory fulfillment of the distribution contract. The reason why I am happy is that, if The Sorcerer's Apprentice fails, there will be no strong competitors competing with them for market share in the mid-July schedule, and the film's potential can be released to a greater extent. After all, Inception has invested 200 million yuan, and there is still pressure to create profits. Why would Disney be willing to schedule a bad movie in the summer season? It's such a waste. Wouldn't it be better to pick a less popular one? Who could have known in advance that the team composed of the main creators such as Jodie Tober, Matt Lopez, Jerry Bruckheimer, and Nicolas Cage, Jay Baruchel, and Teresa Palmer would fail? Lyman's tone was a bit gloating. They just completed the National Treasure series together. Bruckheimer personally took charge of the project and let his film company take a part of the investment share. There is no reason for Disney not to use these resources to win over. The director, producer, and starring actors of National Treasure are Jodie Tober, Jerry Bruckheimer, and Cage. Why is he so unlucky? Lemon also muttered. In this life, Lemon helped Cage get rid of the big pit of the housing market, but the subprime mortgage crisis and the sluggish economy made Cage still encounter bad movies. Is this fate? But for Cage, both Bruckheimer and Jodie Tober were people he was familiar with working with, and he could not escape. It was like when Lemon suddenly had a project asking him to act in. He happily accepted it, but ended up encountering repeated setbacks after the filming was completed. By the way, remember to follow up on the topic hype of Inception, and make sure the audience is interested in dreams. Don't worry. Lyman agreed. Chapter 994 Gadgets. He didn't have to worry about the publicity. Even Sony was more concerned than him. Anyway, the quality of Inception was there, and Leo, Heath Ledger, and Tom Hardy were there to help. It was bound to be a big hit. Moreover, the fighting power of Leo's fans at this time should not be underestimated. After all, this group of people could even make a movie that won an award at the box office of over 100 million yuan. This market appeal was absolutely off the charts. In fact, if it weren't for the premiere, Lemon wouldn't have appeared at the reception. He had a very fulfilling time during this period. Because of the preparations for the Avengers, he needed to spend a lot of time communicating with the heads of various departments. Occasionally, he had to go to the set to see the real scene and the effects. Occasionally, he would go to the digital field to talk about special effects CG. He was very busy. After one night, the calendar turned to July 17th, which was also the day when Inception was released nationwide in the United States. But as he judged, with the cast of this film, there was no lack of attention, and fans could push the first day's attendance forward. If we add the Iron Man to this summer, it will bring Lemon's film company no less than 93 million in production profits, minus the 32 million taken by Nolan Studio and the 234 million in cost, and the share from Warner and the theaters. The copyright, peripherals, and home entertainment will bring no less than 1.36 billion in cash, total revenue in the next 3 years. Then there is The Despicable Me, that will be released next. Lemon thought about the actions of his own studio this summer, and it is sure to hit the throne of the top performance. Slightly excited, he took back these thoughts, and looked at the arrangements for the roles of the characters in his hands, which probably gave an explanation to all parties. The arrangement of actors in the Avengers was a bit time consuming. Who is the first, and who is the supporting role are all points of competition among major brokerage companies. In other words, his stance on each group scene of superheroes has to take into account the issue of future promotion, and also who the fan market will buy into, but it's roughly the same as in the previous life. Marvel's number one is undoubtedly Iron Man, played by Downey, who is the number one in the existing camp in terms of popularity and performance, and has the widest market acceptance, so he has the most roles. And is definitely the team leader. Evan's Captain America is second. His identity is very pleasing to white people, and he is another leader. As for Thor and the Hulk, they are high-powered thugs, and will appear more in fighting scenes, and the latter also has a scene of promoting new technology and equipment with Stark. The other is Loki, the villain who can be whitewashed in this film, and he has a lot of room for performance, but it is limited to the New York battle, and the rest, undoubtedly, have a weakened presence, and Hawkeye doesn't even have a few frontal shots. There's no way, it's not popular, and it's not a female character, so it's indeed easy to be sacrificed in the arrangement. Anyway, it's settled. Fighting over the ranking is a big problem. It's better to divide it in advance. After all, this is not a one-man show between the characters. There must be a focus. Lyman had just solved this problem and sent it to Ryan, who was still dealing with the team behind the actors. For his reference, Assistant Mace came in to report that some small gadgets for the Inception project had also been distributed. I didn't expect that a totem setting in the film would be popular among movie fans. Perelman excitedly took out some regional sales data to prove the audience's market enthusiasm. Are these small gadgets cheap? A few dollars each. Of course the audience will not be stingy with this little money. Things like spinning tops and dice are all items carried by the protagonists in the movie. They have a high sense of atmosphere. Under the carrier of the movie, it is easy to be fashionable for a while. There is no problem with the products channel. The inventory is also ready. Don't underestimate these small gadgets. Because they are cheap and have symbolic meanings, there is no problem in adding millions of profits to the film. In the years of operating the movie, Lyman has become more and more sensitive to these. There won't be a problem. The initial volume of 300,000 can definitely be digested according to the current trend, and we will adjust accordingly based on the market. Okay. Lyman always liked to entrust professional matters to professionals. You follow up in the next period of time. By the way, how was the promotion effect during the film screening stage? Our market feedback is very good, and the film critics and mainstream media have given high praise. In addition, the main creators are actively on the roadshow, and the advertising is very good. At least, the reputation is guaranteed, and the developability of the copyright has been greatly improved. Are there any newspapers? Let me see. When Mez, who was standing by, heard this, he quickly brought over a dozen mainstream newspapers. An extremely complex, but very fascinating science fiction dream journey. The Hollywood Reporter: this film is like The Matrix plus Memento and Paprika, with anti-physics exploration, exciting action scenes, impactful emotions, and wonderful performances by the actors, which makes people addicted. This is undoubtedly a new field for Nolan's films. Empire Inception is a very Nolan movie, with rich details and intricate narratives, which takes people into a subconscious maze. Variety: I flipped through it roughly, but as Perelman said, the praise for this film in the Hollywood film critics is very common. Maybe it's also a problem of the increasingly impetuous times. When encountering such a high quality film with exploratory meaning, it is difficult for film critics not to praise it. Inception is likely to become the fifth work of Nolan director to enter the IMDb top 250. Although some viewers gave it a very low rating, most people like it very much. Perelman exclaimed, "Boss, you also made an appointment with the senior executives of Emperor Cinemas." The assistant kept an eye on the time and quickly reminded, "Okay, I should go. Once I finish these, I'll be busy with my own projects when the box office is stable." Lyman turned around and went to the reception room. "Our project will only open on 3,760 screens." Sony was a little worried about Inception being an original project, but now it seems that we have to raise it. At least in the same period, no movie can compete with us. What about The Sorcerer's Apprentice? Lyman still remembers this movie starring Cage. This movie was ridiculed by the industry. The media's comprehensive review was only 43 points. I heard that the Golden Raspberry Awards also set their sights on this movie and will nominate them for several awards. This is the trouble brought by fame. Lemon was helpless. After Wind Talkers, will Cage get another Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Actor? A superstar like him who has no shortage of awards and achievements should always be careful about being exploited. Jerry Bruckheimer is miserable. I heard that he invested a lot of money. Yes, this once gold medal producer also fell from grace after this. Chapter 995. The gap is obvious. The fatal weakness of the Sorcerer's Apprentice is that the expectations do not match the main creative loop. If it is a new film directed by a new director with little traffic and third-rate actors, the audience will not pay attention to it. However, the ability to attract attention before the film is released is not low, and fans are even more looking forward to it. They hope that the combination of Cage plus Jodie Tober can bring a movie that is not inferior to National Treasure, so they will criticize it with disappointment after discovering the quality is not good. Furthermore, the box office height, reputation, and attendance rate of a movie in the first week of the market basically determine the basic plate and upper limit of a movie. The Sorcerer's Apprentice can't even please the core fans. How to promote it to let subsequent passers-by enter? This is an unsolvable problem, especially with the increasing audience of websites such as IMDb, Yahoo, Facebook, and Rotten Tomatoes. Many people are also accustomed to looking at the evaluation of the film before watching the movie. Obviously, the reputation of The Sorcerer's Apprentice cannot be carefully tasted. It is not pleasing to both film critics and audiences, and its ability to turn the tables is worrying. Leo, this way, Ledger, this way, look this way. On the afternoon of the day after the release, at the entrance of a luxury cinema in Chicago, the creators who came here for the roadshow waved and smiled at the fans and reporters who were crowded inside and outside. The better Inception is, the better the image of the actors and the characters is. Even if it is a bit tiring, everyone is happily starting the regional promotion schedule. This project has no reference value, right? In Los Angeles, Warner CEO Kevin Tsujihara is also paying attention to the current film market. There were several people sitting in the office, and someone from the production department echoed, yes, with a first-class script, a first-class director, and first-class actors, it is not easy to achieve these goals. They also know how to choose the direction of publicity and play to the strengths of the work. Inception is not very commercial, but after the dream setting and the blank space at the end were hyped up, the audience liked it very much. There was a sense of high aesthetics, and they would not feel that they had mastered it after repeated appreciation. According to surveys, there are no fewer viewers who watch the film a second time, and this phenomenon has made up for the film's lack of universal entertainment. It seems that, when the film is taken off the screen, the DVD sales will not be bad. The narrative structure is still parallel as always. Such a film is easy to create profits in the offline market. An executive from the distribution department said, "What a pity, we have tried to win over Nolan several times, but he is unwilling to join our label cooperation system." No one refuted this statement of poaching partners. As early as after Batman Begins, Warner paid more attention to Nolan. Later, The Dark Knight became a big hit, and they were eager to recruit talents. However, Nolan has always been with Firefly and has not yet revealed any idea of changing the production label. "We can only offer the same level as Firefly," one person said. The difficulty? Yes, he is also paid the highest salary in the industry at Firefly, with good commissions and remuneration, and he has freedom, so it is really difficult to leave. An author's film can perform so well, which is completely better than Ninja Assassin by the Wachowskis. They are also talented directors. Why can't we meet directors as self-disciplined and self-controlled as Nolan and Lemon? Even Zack Snyder is more willing to go back. The boss of Warner couldn't help complaining. It's a personality problem. The Wachowskis are too arrogant after becoming famous, and some of our people are very patient with them. The person in the distribution department made a small complaint. They are so addicted to the art of film that they have become freaks. Now they are like brother and sister. They will not shoot anything except the Matrix series. They always think about addition and never consider subtraction. They like experimental themes. One is racing, the other is assassin. You can't guess what the next one will be. Someone followed up with a complaint. The voices of dissatisfaction within Warner Brothers with this genius, who was once praised by its own senior executives as a money-grabbing machine, are getting louder and louder. Not long ago, the Ninja Assassin produced by these two people flopped again. In total, they have lost money for 3 films in a row. Forget it. If there are no other good scripts for the time being, we will be more cautious when discussing projects with them. Okay. The person next to him wrote it down. I heard that after the screening of Inception, popular science books on dream interpretation and psychological analysis on the market have become popular. Do you think this movie has the possibility of breaking 600 million worldwide? Someone predicted with admiration. More than that, I think it can be 700 million. Last night, Fox TV invited Tom Hardy to be a guest on an evening talk show, and talked about interesting things during the filming. The ratings were very high, and this was when Nolan, Leo and others did not show up. Now everyone must be very concerned about him. Not showing up is more conducive to fermenting the heat than showing up. The issue of the spinning top has been discussed all over the internet, with various versions of interpretation. As long as he drags his feet and does not answer this question directly, it will all be hot. Sony will not miss this opportunity. A good publicity and promotion expert analyzed, look, aren't Nolan and others avoiding this issue? They are talking about real shooting and fighting scenes, and don't involve the interpretation of the plot at all. They also know that leaving suspense is very advantageous for such a movie. Didn't they say that there were audiences leaving in advance? Why does it feel that the audience range is quite broad? No one wants to be questioned about their IQ. Now there are topics on the internet that people who can't understand Inception are stupid. This kind of stimulation can easily stir up the emotions of the audience. This kind of involvement is indeed a good method. The means of hype are nothing more than these. Who among the general public doesn't have a desire to win? Therefore, Inception, a good movie. Brain burning, a good movie. As long as you keep repeating these core words in major promotional media, it will definitely stimulate the audience's desire to watch the movie. This method cannot be used by ordinary movies. Everyone in the room smiled helplessly, but in fact they were not very unhappy with the performance of Inception. In the mid-July schedule, Warner did not have any major movies to show, and there was no competition between the two sides. It can even be said that Warner was still busy operating the home entertainment market for Iron Man 2. It was just for fun and analyzing the element of success. The only one who was really annoyed was Disney, the producer and distributor of The Sorcerer's Apprentice. The better Inception sold, the more embarrassing their work seemed. The audience would compare. If everyone showed bad movies in the same schedule, there might be a possibility of comparison, but Inception undoubtedly killed this possibility. On the first day, the former earned $21.5 million, while the latter earned less than $7.5 million. With the same high investment, the gap was obvious. Chapter 996, Can't Fall Behind. July 18th, Saturday. Scarlett got into her agent's car and drove from home. The car stopped within 20 minutes. The agent, who had completed his driver duties, waved and watched his client walk into the new Line studios. She seemed quite happy. After all, she was the only female character with the most scenes in Avengers, and she didn't have to compete with Gwyneth for the few scenes. It can be said that until this film, her special identity as a female superhero began to show. Good morning, everyone. Scarlett came to the fitting room and greeted several staff members. Good morning. Scarlett just sat down and was having her hair done. She suddenly asked, "Where's the director? What time do we start shooting? I'm having a small meeting. We can probably start shooting around 10 o'clock. The stylist answered in an uncertain tone. Oh, thinking about the performance of Iron Man 2, I don't know how this more impressive project will be. Everyone is here, right? Okay, let me tell you about the things you need to pay attention to during the filming." On the other side, in the studio room, the heads of various departments of the crew, union representatives, fire insurance representatives, Ryan, Kevin, Thomas and others gathered together. Because this is the first time that superheroes have gathered together, the first point is confidentiality. I don't want to see the content of the filming on the set spread all over the place before the movie enters the promotion stage, understand? Not a single still can be released in advance. As for the actors, everyone can only have their own lines and storyboards. In addition, security work, don't let irrelevant people sneak in and take pictures secretly. With the last sentence, Lyman simply looked at the fire fund, the guarantor of the crew's various insurances. Of course, the cast and crew can't work in Hollywood for a long time without this sense of confidentiality, so it was just a warning and skipped. How is the communication with New York City Hall? They agreed to cooperate with us, but the road section can only be filmed in the early hours of the morning. The location crew said, it's okay as long as it can be arranged. A morning meeting lasted more than 2 hours. For such a large project, there are many trivial matters that need to be determined every day. But when the filming starts, it is easy, at least for Lyman. The competition for the status of Hollywood male actors is actually quite fierce. When the older generation of movie stars retire, the young idols, that is idol boys, are extremely restricted by age. Whether they can make a smooth transition is still uncertain. This also makes the new generation of superstars with good popularity and performance and lasting appeal even fewer. However, the market for male actors is more universal than that for female actors. The strange thing is that, although Hollywood has a larger proportion of male fans, female audiences have always been preferred in terms of support and purchasing power. This is why more and more female actors can only be used as vases. This is the choice of the market, not the choice of capital. After all, for any production studio, good female themes are rare. On the contrary, it is lower to catch the right male actors. From this perspective, the demand for chasing popularity and bringing the greatest possible benefits will be most valued. For Leo now, Inception is like a layer of gold paint on his golden statue, making him even more dazzling. Even though everyone has different criteria for judging success, after the first day, the film's sales curve of Friday equals Saturday, Sunday can basically be regarded as a long-term trend. In other words, a science fiction blockbuster that cost $160 million, not counting the publicity costs, directly saw the North American $300 million drop line. In the car heading to Ohio, Leo learned from his extremely happy agent that Inception had won a box office of $60.4 million, topped the weekly chart, and had a single theater screening data of $16,000. Is $60.4 million in the first week high? Not high. Monster level sales data have been more and more exaggerated in recent years, and Avatar has only been released for a few months. But this result is more than 8 million higher than the predicted box office of Columbia. According to them, this movie has Leo and Heath Ledger, which can indeed attract fans. However, the data on the first day will be more impressive, and the decline will be very fast. After all, Inception is an original project, and its subject matter itself has no audience base. Let me give you another example. Since Titanic, Leo's best opening performance as the leading actor was Large Island in late 2009 with his old partner Martin Scorsese. But now, Inception has become the highest first week box office in his acting career with $60.4 million, and its final figure has surpassed How to Get Away with Murder with $165 million, becoming the second work to cross the 200 million mark in North America, and even the 300 million box office in North America. Moreover, this kind of data is only in the original science fiction theme, and there is no doubt that it has a great possibility of becoming the first in history, which is why Leo's agent is happy. For them, Leo's market appeal has always been there during the years he has been honing his acting skills, but it is obviously declining. In recent years, his real-time performance has been much worse than that of big-name male actors such as Cage, Bale, and Smith. Under such circumstances, he is very happy to get a movie with good box office and good reputation. The superstar style has stabilized and climbed directly. We Are first, The Sorcerer's Apprentice is second, and Toy Story is third. The agent happily showed the report card to Leo. I heard from Lyman that, if nothing unexpected happens, we will exceed 100 million by next Wednesday, about 250 million worldwide. Yes. I want to say hello to director Alan. Mr. Lemon, please call for me. Leo still has a good emotional intelligence. Even though he is very tired from running publicity every day, he has made all the greeting calls. Of course, other actors are similar. Even if they don't mention it, the agent is also happy to maintain the relationship between the big directors. After hanging up the phone and driving into the event venue, many reporters surrounded him as soon as he got out of the car. Leo, can you tell me about the performance of Inception? How do you feel about the first week earning $60.4 million, which has become a new benchmark for your career? Can you talk about your opinion on the character of Cobb? His self-righteous arrogance killed his wife. What do you think of director Nolan? These are all reporters who were specially taken care of by the event organizers or Sony and Blue Butterfly Pictures. The questions they asked were not tricky, but very routine. He himself was in a good mood, just like his agent was excited. The existence of Inception alleviated his embarrassment of not having a hot-selling work in recent years, even if he was trying to get rid of the image of a brat and actively transform himself, paving the way for his career planning with mature acting skills that were gradually recognized by the audience. People like him are also afraid of falling behind. Chapter 997 Daily Life of the Avengers Crew, Part 1. For the Avengers project, New Line Studios has specially designated an area for planning and upgrading on the original basis. Yes, just for the needs of a scene lens, more than $30 million of the $200 million budget was thrown in. Of course, this deal is not a one-time consumption. The interior framework of subsequent Marvel projects can also find templates here, such as Iron Man's Arsenal and Laboratory, the office of Nick Fury, director of SYNOPSIS, the old streets and room interiors after Captain America wakes up, etc., are all buildings that can be filmed repeatedly. Moreover, shooting in their own studios, not renting and upgrading to expand domestic demand are also important reasons for reference. Young people don't know how expensive tadpoles are. Only when you really control a large crew with such a level of investment as Avengers, you will find out how to spend money. If you don't think of more ways to create more value, it's just like throwing money away. Let's put it this way, the special effects team, which mainly focuses on the digital field, carefully evaluated the script and knew that, in order to achieve the effect that Lyman wanted, at least more than 3,000 shots needed to be processed. For this item alone, $52 million was gone. In addition, the crew actually separated into 3 filming groups and split up to shoot different branches at the same time. For example, Group A sent Captain America, Group B sent Black Widow and Hawkeye to level 9 agents of SHIELD, and Group C was mainly shooting Iron Man and recruiting members. In other words, with the support of the Hollywood industrial system such as unions and brokerage companies, the 3 crews brought together more than 800 behind-the-scenes personnel. The salaries of these people alone, outside recruits are calculated on a weekly basis, are not cheap, not to mention the slide rails, equipment wear and tear, rental, 3 meals a day, hotel accommodation, etc., which really cost money like water. In a blink of an eye, it was July 24th, Saturday, at 9 AM, New Line Studios. As usual, a small meeting was held to clarify today's shooting tasks. Some people were busy pulling actors to walk around, some were busy setting up props and machines, some were busy adjusting the light, and some were busy setting up the scene. The entire crew performed their duties and moved quickly. Although there are many big names in this play, they dare not be too presumptuous. Lemon just ignores the occasional small competition. But when a group of actors are busy with McHugh and Jeremy, who plays Hawkeye, can only sit and wait, it is inevitable that some styles are not right. Of course, Jeremy himself doesn't care. His personality or professional ethics is really good. Logically speaking, the director would not mind if a character like him who has few scenes joins the group later, or even waits for the scenes to be filmed. After all, Hawkeye's shots are mostly group scenes, and there are basically no special scenes for him. He is not the main character of this play. He is a green leaf among the green leaves, and there is no need to pay too much energy. To be selfish, in terms of arrangement, he is the one who can be the least careful. His highlights are not amazing at all. Anyway, although Mark's Hulk does not have many scenes, he also has famous scenes like forcing the mechanical dragon back with one punch, and swinging Loki around. What does Hawkeye have? But he is the one who rushes to the crew every day. Kevin Feige also asked him, and Jeremy's answer was, I have no movies to play recently, so it's good to come to the crew to learn. So, this scene appeared in the Avengers crew. When Downey, Evans and other first generation actors put on uncomfortable costumes and were exhausted and sweating, Jeremy was watching Lyman directing behind the director's monitor. But for Jeremy, it's not like this. He is not a person with a smooth career. When he entered the industry in his early years, he often faced the dilemma of having no movies to shoot. Before the age of 39, he was an ordinary actor struggling in the third line and frustrated. It can be said that he has tasted enough of the bitterness of the actor industry. Acting in Night Angel, a TV series, was scolded, and participating in notices, he was always the last to go on stage, and enjoyed the few attentions. He always said to himself, how can I seize the opportunity if I don't work hard to improve myself? After waiting for many years, he is still not famous. Thinking about the actors who played supporting roles at the same time, and then thinking about himself, sometimes he feels that he can't eat the bowl of actor. It was also with this kind of life experience that he filmed The Hurt Locker in 2009, where he finally played the leading role, and a leading role with a lot of room for scenes. So when he knew that the production company Summit Entertainment had no money for Oscars PR, he paid for himself to attend various cocktail parties to win the favor of film critics. To outsiders, doing this is of course a bit stupid, but for him, The Hurt Locker is already the best project for him in all his years of work. If he is not active now, when will he be active? As everyone knows, The Hurt Locker shone brightly at the 82nd Academy Awards, and his acting career also had a good foundation. Of course, he was already 40 years old that year, and he was only a little famous at the age of 40. Art film, and how much of his market value could be recognized by real capital? But he was very content, at least he was getting better. In other words, his psychological journey at this time was actually similar to that of The Hurt Locker, both of which were trying their best to show themselves for a goal. Hawkeye is not the main character, but the director is Lyman, the production company is Marvel, and the actors are popular stars like Downey, Evans, and Scarlett. That's enough. Thinking of this, what's wrong with spending more time on the crew? If doing so can make Kevin, Lyman, and a number of well-known filming teams in the industry have a better understanding of him, it's nothing at all. Besides, he only showed up in Thor, and thanks to the box office success of the film, audiences around the world know him better. With this performance, the role of Hawkeye has been very helpful to him in his opinion. It's not that his efforts have not been rewarded, but he is just a little worse than other co-stars. It's okay if it's a little worse, just stay yourself. Jeremy took the opportunity to move a soft chair and put it next to the director while he was discussing the camera angle with the crew's chief cameraman Thomas. Thank you. Lyman was a little tired, so it was just right to sit down and chat. Lay down the crane arm half a meter later. If it's too high, the lens frame won't look good. Yeah. Thomas still looked serious and took note. Speaking of which, Lyman had a good impression of Jeremy. He had mature acting skills and a good figure. Whether he was an action movie star or other middle-aged roles, he could do most of them. He had a wide range of roles. But it was just admiration. He never thought of giving Hawkeye more roles. How could the 6 members of the Avengers be treated equally? This kind of thing was simply a thankless thing. The 3 giants of Marvel were not decided by the internal team, but the audience market was more fond of Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. Fortunately, these performances will always be noticed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 998 Daily Life of the Avengers Crew, Part 2. Attention, all departments, we'll start filming in 10 minutes. Kevin shouted with a megaphone. Every time he called a unit leader, he got a positive answer before calling the script supervisor to come in. Act 22. First shot, action. The camera focused, the scene became quiet, and it was convenient to record the sound. Of course, if the recording was not good, it could be matched in post-production, which was also easy. Today was the 8th day of group shooting. The line of the American team had reached the time of assembly, so Lyman was in charge personally. In a basement, The old soldier who had been lying alone on the cold and hard ice for 70 years, stood at a loss on the unfamiliar street after being rescued, lamenting that he had missed an important date. The hero turned to be a fitness coach. It must be said that there was enough contrast. The sandbags flying left and right were finally knocked away by the man's punch, but he just gasped and silently replaced the sandbags. Can't sleep? Samuel Jackson appeared with a familiar eye mask. I slept for 70 years, sir. I think I've slept enough. Evans continued to hit the sandbags. Not to mention, during this period of preparation, Evans maintained a good figure, wearing a white short-sleeved shirt. Very powerful, but literary drama is still his weakness. Compared with Jackson's ease, Lyman watched the two peoples play, and it was obvious that the American captain who should have been shown the temperament that was somewhat incompatible with the times was not reflected. However, Lyman did not have very high requirements for Avengers. He did not pursue the most natural performance, as long as it was acceptable. Evans, an actor, was born with a job. He had a comic face, and was willing to work hard to maintain his figure. He had already met the requirements of the role. The audience did not come for his acting skills, did they? Then, after a shot was shot, Lyman signaled the stagehand to hand over the props. A document about the cosmic cube. Is this the secret weapon of Hydra? Evans recognized it at a glance. He had this when he was fighting the Red Skull on the plane. This was found in the ocean when Howard Stark was searching for you. After our research, this Rubik's Cube may be the key to discovering eternal energy. Who took it away? Evans asked bluntly. Loki, an outsider. If you are willing to join us, I will give you some lessons. Jackson sighed. The world is changing too fast, beyond people's imagination. Pass. Another shot was taken. In a blink of an eye, 2 days passed, and it was a new Monday. Last weekend, the action thriller John Wick starring Angelina Jolie won $20.4 million in one fell swoop, rushing into the second place in the weekly chart. Among the audience groups, the proportion of female audiences was as high as 55%, making it the first film in this summer season to enjoy the female bonus. This situation is even rarer in the field of action. In comparison, the Kill Bill series, which also has female action stars, has a female audience ratio of less than 40%. However, the family comedy The Ramona Sisters produced by Fox, which is also a new film, is not so lucky. It opened with less than $9 million in the first week, revealing the temperament of cannon fodder. Fortunately, the investment in this film is not high. Even if the box office cannot make back the investment, it will not be a big loss if it is operated well. On the set, Lyman, who was taking a lunch break at noon, also received an email from Lyman containing box office data. After the $60.4 million in the first week, the market of Inception fell by less than 30% in the second week, and it took in $42.33 million again in the second weekend. After 10 days of screening, the total box office in North America was $148 million. Such a strong trend made a lot of theater operators feel mixed. In any case, this year's summer vacation is not too dull, and there is still a lively taste. With the background of winning the North American box office weekly list for 2 consecutive weeks, movie fans rushed to IMDb crazily, and the score soared to 9.3 points, ranking only after The Shawshank Redemption and The Godfather. In addition, compared with the North American market, Inception is not subject to too many regional restrictions overseas, and it is at the top of the box office charts of various countries. Perhaps it is because of the high quality, somewhat brain-burning and logically rigorous science fiction films that everyone loves to watch. According to the feedback from overseas ticket warehouses such as the United Kingdom, Spain, and Australia, which were screened simultaneously, the film has earned 124 million yuan. This is before the mainland has been screened, and the release date has been extended. The global market has earned 272 million yuan in 10 days. As an original project, this achievement is remarkable. It can even be said that for the sequels of some well-known series, 272 million yuan in 10 days is considered quite good. Relying on steady results, the popularity of the crew has greatly increased, and they have frequently entered the Yahoo Hot Search list. A related report can attract a lot of clicks, which is enough to show the enthusiasm of the audience. After all, looking back at the past 7 months of 10 years, except for an Avatar, an Alice in Wonderland, an animation of How to Train Your Dragon, etc., the number of projects that have detonated the film market has been missing compared with previous years. Sony, Warner, Fox, and Universal's self-produced projects did not make much progress in the first half of the year. It can be said that they were supported by Paramount and Man Media, so they did not lose their luster. However, compared with the box office in previous years, this year's box office has declined for several months. The cinema chain is not having a good time, especially under the premise of increasing the replacement of projection equipment. Operating expenses have increased, and income is bound to be affected. Now they are facing the incompetence of the studios, and they are also suffering. It's a very simple vicious circle. Audiences don't buy tickets, sales of beverages and retail fast food decrease, cinema revenue drops sharply, there is no IMAX theater, audiences don't come, lack of customer flow, forcing cinemas to increase investment, the heavier financial burden, the worse the debt ratio, investors back off. Except for Inception, which continued to maintain its leading advantage in the second weekend. Old films like Toy Story 3 are still at the top of the list. The reason why they didn't move is that the competition is not high. It can be said that the overall market of the top 12 this week is only 135 million, and this is a bonus from the summer vacation. Compared with last year, it has dropped by about 22%. Compared with this year, the trend is also relatively cold. After experiencing the continuous popularity in 2008 and 2009, and the momentum of Avatar in 2010, the theater chain operators fantasized that this year's performance would be better, but they were poured cold water by reality. This is how the film industry is, full of unknowns. Even if the total market of Hollywood just broke the record last year, it can still cool down this year. However, this kind of thing is an opportunity for Firefly. The overall market cooling does not affect the hot production business of their side. The oppression of the general environment on individuals is still declining. It can even be said that, because of the hard times, the publicity and distribution resources of major studios can be poured into Firefly. For example, Sony is now concentrating on the Inception project. In addition, The Sorcerer's Apprentice has dropped to the 5th place, with a total cumulative amount of only 28.7 million. Chapter 999 Original Soundtrack. Whether it is the screening of Inception, the filming of Avengers, or the gathering of heroes that are said to open up a new path for comic book adaptations, the heat can only be maintained for a while, and the impact will soon decline. In August, the film market has welcomed several new works. Among them, Fool's Dinner, produced by Paramount and DreamWorks, received 23.3 million in the first week, and the animation Cats and Dogs, produced by Warner, won 12.53 million. There is nothing to talk about the others. The market competition is not high. Inception has successfully topped the charts for 3 consecutive weeks. The decline in the third week was less than 35%, earning 27.42 million, and the total cumulative revenue in North America exceeded 200 million. On the new Monday, the advertising screen in the square played a lipstick advertisement endorsed by Ellen Page. After the blessing of the two hit films Juno and Inception, a star in the entertainment industry is rising. A man saw this scene and turned to walk to the Marvel flagship store that was being renovated on the corner of the street. How's the situation? Don't worry, it will be delivered on schedule at the beginning of next month. The person in charge of the construction party promised. On the other side, the film screening organized by Blue Butterfly Pictures had just ended, and 2 theater representatives walked out chatting and laughing. I didn't expect that he had such a big move. I remember that guy was the director of Fox Animation, but he joined Man Media. That was 3 years ago. Didn't you hear that he became the president of Illumination Entertainment in the form of a label cooperation? Working for others is not as good as being your own boss. That's right, but I didn't expect Fox to let such a capable person go. Fox has Blue Sky Animation. Who knows if there is any reason behind this? The film review manager of AMC Theaters shrugged. I'm just guessing, but it's none of our business. I just need to judge whether Despicable Me is qualified to be promoted. I say, what do you think of this animated film? I feel that many audiences will like it. It's quite funny and the characters are likable. Another person pointed to the Inception poster hanging high not far away. This is someone Lemon values. Nolan succeeded, so Christopher Meledandri won't be far behind. Then how many screens do you plan to invest in, Kamek? Although I'm optimistic, we should test the waters in the first week, just in case we make a mistake. You are really cautious. It's the same. I'm getting more and more confused about the audience's mind. The two walked away, talking and laughing. The days of filming were still boring and fulfilling. The reason for the boredom was that there were too many people and too many trivial matters, and it took a lot of time to solve them every day. The fulfillment was that I watched the scenes being completed bit by bit, and I thought about the finished film in my mind, and I didn't feel anything. Of course, in his spare time, Lemon was also very concerned about his identity as the boss of the studio. So many people depended on him for food, so he had to be responsible. Fortunately, Inception was as strong as ever. Even in the third week, as more and more people watched it, fewer people bought tickets to enter, and the audience's enthusiasm showed a downward trend overall. Everyone had passed the stage of impulsive and mindless praise. Many people began to analyze the film objectively and calmly. As expected, the evaluation dropped a little, and the score of Inception on IMDb also dropped a little. 9.3 points is indeed a bit outrageous, and the height caused by the audience's enthusiasm is strictly speaking a bit false. However, the foundation is there, and it is still the undisputed number one in the same field. Supermarkets, restaurants and even Sony's push channels have also been developing the market for original soundtracks. The melody of Hans Zimmer, which combines the dazzling compactness of electronic music and the majestic spirit of symphony, can be heard everywhere in the city. In particular, Non-Je Northeast Regret Rien, which was used as the wake-up background music in Inception, has once again gained a second spring, and the radio station has directly started the song dominating mode. According to the report compiled by Sony, in the first week, the first batch of more than 7,000 original soundtracks were sold out in Illinois alone, and they urgently need to be restocked. Of course, the soundtrack is selling well, and the happiest people are not the producers like Firefly, but the copyright holders of the music samples, the soundtrack studio like Hans Zimmer, and even the channel Sony. Under all the distribution, Firefly can't get much money, the smallest of the small heads. But think about it from another perspective. If there is no soundtrack master like Hans Zimmer who spends time to tailor it, how can the viewing effect of Inception be so outstanding? Soundtrack is also an integral part of the movie. Then, just when the box office performance of Inception was going downhill, on the evening of August 3rd, Lyman called and said that Despicable Me produced by Illumination Entertainment had received high evaluations in the internal preview and could start publicity. Lemon nodded. Then the next day, Lyman called Perelman to come to the set of Avengers together. There were only 4 people in the room, including Ryan. You guys start. Let me hear the plan first. Lemon spoke first at his seat. It's time to start working on overseas business. I think Despicable Me is a good fit. Perelman was the first to suggest. I see that the theater representatives are quite satisfied with it. It has good marketability. I think so too. There's the Despicable Me project in August, Gone Girl directed by David Fincher in September, and You're the Piano Tuner in October. With these 3 films, we will be able to lay a good foundation for overseas business. What about overseas theater resources? Not a big problem. Our label's projects are well known, and agents in those regions are willing to deal with us. We can bring them benefits. Perelman added with a smile. Since he became the president of regional operations, he has had a lot of contact with overseas capital forces, and he clearly knows that the focus of overseas distribution is to have a sufficiently profitable pie and to get a suitable return on investment. This is not the most important thing. What I mean is that we can first push it into the theater market in North America and Canada. After we show results, will those agents just sit back and do nothing? When we cooperated with Lionsgate on Twilight, they did the same thing. Data never lies. Perelman also nodded. Then I will come up with a supporting offline market development and copyright operation plan when I go back. This plan will also require the help of channel dealers such as Hasbro and Sony Audio and Video Department. You can talk to them yourself. Anyway, there will be no difference in commissions. Lemon waved his hand. It is mainly based on the potential of Despicable Me in the toy market. I think it can create a new character economy for the company. I think it may be comparable to the money-making ability of the Ice Age series. Our orders have been sent out long ago, and all factory lines are manufacturing. In the image licensing market, we are still involved in the cooperation in the form of copyright holders. After all, we don't have much production capacity and promotion capabilities. So, everything is ready, right? Finally, we also have our own animation brand. I hope Illumination Entertainment can bring new changes to the market structure of three-way division. Chapter 1000 Female Action Star. Despicable Me is scheduled to be released on August 5th. From the perspective of the schedule, there are no big productions in this summer. The cost of nearly 70 million yuan of Illumination Entertainment is already very high-end. Even though Blue Butterfly Pictures' ability to promote and distribute during the summer is limited, it has obtained nearly 3,000 screens for the opening and signed a formal screening contract. 3,000 is not too many, nor is it too few. Once there are achievements, no one wants to miss the profitable business, so there is nothing. This scale may only be limited to the first week. Of course, these are all things for the future. For Lemon personally, his task is to shoot Avengers. Early in the morning, more than a dozen buses drove into the parking lot of the studio, and the studio, which had been quiet all night, suddenly became lively again. Lemon naturally did not rely on buses for unified pickup and drop off. He was lazy and asked someone to help him set up a lounge on the set. Occasionally, he remembered to drive back to the hotel to take a shower. If he was too busy and had to perfect the shooting plan for tomorrow at night, he would spend the night in the lounge. He has many luxury cars, mansions, and a lot of money, but they are just to enrich his life. When he encounters something he likes, he still doesn't care. Ryan always teases him, saying, "Why can't you see the feeling of being rich and floating in the air?" When people are floating, they lose their spirits, which is not good, Lemon thought. Just like now, Ryan brought him a fried egg sandwich, and he ate it with relish. Anyway, he didn't need to buy it. "We should be able to complete the Black Widow assembly line today, right?" Ryan asked with a yawn. "As long as there are no problems, it should be possible. Her scenes today are not difficult. Oh, by the way, Joseph asked me to bring you a document for signature and filing." Ryan remembered something and went back to the car to get a document. Monthly data on the sales of derivative products of Iron Man 2 and copyright development. More than a month has passed, and in terms of the licensing of the Iron Man character, Iron Man is still the absolute leader, having sold 270,000 sets of first-level derivative products of various prices, of which he can get 28.98 million. After deducting some necessary expenses, shipping, labor, etc., the net profit is about 27.6 million. While eating, Lemon quickly flipped through the book and signed his name. Ryan was still saying, "The market for Iron Man characters is growing very fast. The sales of the first film were not enough to match those of the second. In total, we have earned 900 million yuan in the licensing market. In the remaining 6 months, even if the buying momentum is gone, we can still create a market of 100 million or 200 million yuan. The revenue figure is high, and there are many people sharing the money. That's nothing. It's probably only twice as high as the net profit from the derivatives of the first film. It can't be much more." Lemon calculated carefully. "It's already a lot. According to David, the success of each of our characters will bring about an increase in Marvel's overall business. So, as long as the current market situation is maintained, Marvel's brand momentum will only grow, become more and more attractive, and will have more and more exclusive audience markets. The current audience is chasing trends. The more popular our characters are, the more they will naturally buy the corresponding character products. Moreover, with the distribution network of those suppliers and distributors, we will further expand our consolidation of the comic adaptation market. That's why we make concessions, right? Haha, I think there is a saying that is very right and fits our current situation. To meet the needs, the level of interest exchange depends on our own strength." After breakfast, the venue was also decorated in a proper manner. It was close to 9 o'clock. Scarlett was wearing a black silk stocking, some thin fabrics, plus the rope art of binding. Sexy. The men at the scene screamed a few times, and Lemon saw this scene and shook his head slightly. Haven't you seen a beauty before? Shame on you. Well, Scarlett's outfit is still a little too tempting, but it also fits her style as an agent who is good at using beauty. Otherwise, her nickname is Black Widow, so of course she has to show it. A woman's sexiest years are here. Fortunately, I can record them with my camera. Thomas personally held the camera and sighed in a pretentious manner. Red hair, red lips, black stockings, suspenders, no shoes, and a slight sweat stain on the forehead. Before the filming officially started, Scarlett's agent, a short-haired white woman, hurried to Lemon and said, "Director, can you clear the scene? There are too many irrelevant people." She pointed to the filming crews of several other groups. "Okay, go do your own thing. After all, this is work, not welfare." After the people dispersed, the scene began soon. Several men in suits surrounded Scarlett in a pretentious manner. The old man in the lead looked confident. "Okay, tell me who you are working for now." "Snowden? I know that a while ago, many of his people were killed by a man wearing an iron-clad armor in the Middle East, and something was lost. So does he want to make up for the loss from me? Non-aggression within the organization. What you did is not in accordance with the rules." Scarlett said weakly. As long as you tell me who is behind you, I can consider letting you go." Ding-ling-ling. While interrogating, the younger brother next to him hurried over, with a confused expression, called this woman. The old man frowned. "Who are you? You just need to know that there is an F-22 fighter 8 kilometers away from you. If she doesn't answer the phone, I will order the whole street to be bombed." When it was learned that Hawkeye Barton was in trouble, the following scenes were all fighting scenes, and the effect was nothing more than the Black Widow's martial arts show. After a series of operations, several big men were subdued in 3 or 5 moves. To be honest, watching a beauty shoot fighting scenes is actually a kind of enjoyment. Even when they were shooting one action after another, it didn't feel slow. "Have you trained? You're quite skilled," Lemon asked casually during lunch. "I found an expert in the industry who has a lot of experience in designing actions and trained him for 3 weeks. Only 3 weeks. Then you have the potential to become a female action star. Very cool." Lemon looked at Scarlett, who had a charming temperament, but a bit of heroism between her eyebrows, and felt that it was a waste for her to only act in art films. Although she had a lot of acting talent, in Hollywood, where there was a shortage of action actresses, she could definitely carry a banner, so that Angelina Jolie wouldn't be active in the action field at her old age. "This is my second role with fighting scenes. I was badly criticized for the previous one. Well, Escape from the Island also has action element. Anyway, I think you can develop in this direction, and don't waste your advantages." "Oh." This time the other party's eyes lit up. "Director, do you really think action scenes are suitable for me? Of course, your body is very coordinated and flexible, so you must exercise regularly." "Yes, I often practice yoga." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.